First things first, my name is Jenna Wolf. His name is Hall of Famer Chris Carter. His name is Nick Wright. Happy Tax Day, everybody. Get everything done? Feel good? What?
No.
No? Well, you have time. I think you have till like the end of the day. So.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Happy Tax Day.
Is that not? No? Is it nerdy that I get mine done so early that I can say Happy Tax Day to everybody?
No. That's what you should be doing.
Thank you.
Professional that you are. Yes, absolutely.
How's everybody?
Oh, a little shade thrown my way at 6:31
bit.
a.m. Like Chris Carter's done his own taxes in 30 years.
Wait, our own taxes? No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Right. Thank you, Jen.
I just went
exactly
to see Justin a month ago, so I felt good about things.
Oh, shout out to Justin.
Shout out to Justin. Way to go. You guys see that game last night?
A couple good games
Far
last
different
night.
narrative than we saw the first time these two teams played. Let's
Absolutely
talk about it.
right.
Some drama in the NBA. Game 2 between the Sixers and the Heat. Sixers blew them out in Game 1, so this shouldn't have been an issue, except that it was an issue. Dwayne Wade of old stepped up, pouring in 28 points. Sixers fall to the Heat. First loss in over a month for them. No Joel Embiid again last night, still nursing a broken face. After the game, he Instagrammed, quote, "I'm expletive sick and tired of being babied." Remember, Joel Embiid hasn't played since March 28th and cleared the concussion protocol before Game 2, although he's still not medically cleared to play basketball. Brett Brown addressed the situation after the game.
He just wants to play basketball. He wants to be with his team. He wants to play in front of the fans. He wants to see this through. And when he's not able to do that, he gets frustrated. And I respect his frustration. It's born out of competitiveness, and it's born out of him wanting to be with his team.
All right, we'll get to the game in a second. But, Cece, let me start with you first. Do you think the Sixers are being too cautious with Joel Embiid?
No, I mean, he just passed the concussion protocol. Now, if we were talking about the previous injuries, his overall development, yeah, you might be able to say, yes, they've been very slow in letting him get to full strength before they let him get to back-to-back games. But, no, he's got a facial fracture, and he just passed the concussion protocol, I think, on Sunday. It's Tuesday. So, no, they're doing exactly what they should be doing. It's not, would we be asking this question if Philadelphia had handled their business last night? No, that wouldn't be the narrative to the game. Is Philadelphia, their handling of Joel Embiid, they're up 2-0. Is that? No, that wouldn't even be part of the storyline. But because they lost, and Joel Embiid says, like any other competitive athlete, I wish I could be out there. And that competitiveness is not just based on what he's done this season, but it's his lack of being involved with his team the last 4 or 5 years. What did he do at Kansas? He was injured. He couldn't achieve it. He couldn't go to NCAA. He couldn't dominate the way he went. What did he do coming into the NBA? He had to sit out. Yes, they've been very cautious as far as and slow to let him get back onto the court. And then now they're having the best season they've had in a long, long time in Philadelphia, getting them back into the playoffs, winning 17 in a row. Who wouldn't want to be involved in that? So, no, Joel Embiid is doing what he's supposed to do. As an athlete, he's frustrated because it's prime time, and it's time for him to shine. He's not able to be there with his teammates, and the organization is doing what's in the best interest of Joel Embiid, and they have done it the right way. People question them. They've questioned them for years. I support Philadelphia in what they're doing with the time frame of Joel getting back onto the court.
And listen, I understand why people initially were skeptical about how cautious they were with Embiid. He missed his first 2 seasons. 2 seasons missed. Year 3, he played 31 games. And then all of a sudden this year, they were like, he's not going to play back-to-backs. People thought he might not play more than 50 games. And now he's going to either come in first or second in Defensive Player of the Year. He's one of the best players in the league already. And by the way, that process, to use a bit of a buzzword, has been proven to be the right one for them. They were worried Joel Embiid could become Greg Oden. The history of guys that big with that type of injury is terrible across NBA history. That's why coming out of Kansas...
Yeah, not only Oden, but also Sam Bowie was drafted the same year Michael Jordan was drafted in front of Michael Jordan. Before him, Bill Walton. Big guys with bad feet. It's not a great combination.
Yao Ming, like the guys who have had Hall of Fame level careers cut short that we weren't able to see their full everything from them. So like the other aspect here that people have to, I think, recognize is when this happened, we were told 2 to 4 weeks. And I know sports fans and athletes as well always focus on the first number. If it's 4 to 6 weeks, we're like, so what's happening in 4 weeks?
Right.
If it's 2 to 3 months, what's happening in 2 months? 2 to 4 weeks, we're like, oh, 2 weeks. 2 weeks is the start of the playoffs. Tomorrow will be the 3-week mark. So tomorrow we are just halfway through the window. So the Sixers saying we are going to be cautious with our guy has been, up to this point, the right thing to do. And people do need to recognize, when you mentioned coming out of Kansas, Cece, there's a reason he went third in the draft instead of first. He was clearly the most talented guy. People were concerned about his health. I know this is a different type of injury. This isn't a foot injury. It's a facial fracture. But you don't want to rush a guy back, and he's never played with the mask. They're like, oh, he can do shooting. Can he get bumped? Hassan Whiteside, can he deal with a couple elbows? Can he deal with the things you're going to have to deal with in a playoff game?
All right, so let's talk about how he factors into what happened last night. Sixers won big game one. We assumed this was going to be a rout. It almost looked easy. They didn't have Joel Embiid. Game two, they still don't have Joel Embiid. Everything looked different. It seemed like it was because of Dwayne Wade. What did you see last night? What was the difference?
Well, last night in watching the game, it made me go back to what were we thinking before the series started. And we thought that they might struggle a little bit, especially without Joel Embiid. But they come out, they blitz Miami in the third quarter, because a lot of people forget at halftime the Sixers were losing. So Miami did match up with them over a good part of that game, but people saw the end result. Now they start talking about looking ahead, because this is a young team. They start looking ahead, start potentially talking about a sweep, and then they ran into Dwayne Wade. So you can criticize Philadelphia for not being able to get it done, but Dwayne Wade had one of the historic performances that we've seen in the playoffs, the best that we've ever seen from a Heat player coming off the bench, and without that, they don't win that game. So that's what I saw, a young team who ran into a guy who's got championship pedigree, championship experience, and he gives them a lift like they've never had in all the Heat playoff games. And I'm telling you, as a season ticket holder for a long time for the Heat, to say Dwayne Wade played better than anyone that's ever come off the bench, that's the type of performance it took to Miami to get the series tied up 1-1.
All right, so from the Sixers' perspective, I'm going to get to D. Wade in a moment, because everything CeCe said is correct there, and I think we can amplify it a bit even more. This series should be 1-1. Just look at the three-point shooting. In Game 1, the Sixers were unconscious, and they won the game going away. Yesterday, they couldn't hit a shot, and they were trailing for the bulk of, the entirety of the second half. They had one run that D. Wade ended, which we'll show you how he ended it in a second. But, you're 17 of 27 from three, then you're 7 of 36 from three. Guess what? Usually, things kind of, regress to the mean. They did it real quick. So this series should be 1-1. And the Sixers are not a drastically better team than Miami when Joel Embiid's not out there.
No.
It's about a coin flip if Joel Embiid's not out there. The reason I think people were so confident after Game 1 is people were believing, well, Embiid will definitely be back at least for Game 3. The Sixers just blew him out of the water. But now we don't know if he's going to be back for Game 3. We also saw that Justice Winslow can guard Ben Simmons a little better than we saw in Game 1. There were some things there. But the story's different this morning if the Sixers execute that comeback. They were down 16. They end up going on a run. They cut it to 2 points. And D. Wade had a brilliant first half. But then he had a quiet second half. In the first half, he was 8 of 9 for 21 points. The one missed shot was a 2-for-1 three-pointer that he took just because the math said you should. Wasn't a good shot. Or wasn't a high percentage shot, I should say. And so let's show the audience how Dwayne Wade saved this game. The Sixers have cut it to 4. Cut it to 2. They have all the momentum. There's 4 minutes left. There's D. Wade stripping the ball and then getting a dunk. Now it's a 4-point game. Next time down the court, who orchestrates the play? D. Wade from 32 feet away with a brilliant pass after stepping away from the pick. Next time down the court, now you're up 6. You miss a layup. Here comes D. Wade crashing in, getting the rebound over a bigger Robert Covington, leading to a Dragic jump shot. Timeout, 8-point game. And it wasn't quite game over, but it felt like game over. D. Wade burst onto the scene in 2003 with a triple-double in the Elite Eight to take Marquette to the Final Four. 2003. It is now 2018, and he was the best player on the court in an NBA playoff game. That is why he's one of the 4 best players in the history of his position, why he's one of the 20 best players in the history of the franchise, and why I'm glad that he gets this final chapter in Miami, that he did go back to Miami, that Cleveland did trade him, and he gets to do this for them. That was an awesome story last night.
All right, this series is tied up. Game 3 is Thursday in Miami. Let's see what happens. Coming up, we'll talk some football. Is the Belichick-Brady controversy a bigger deal than we once thought? We'll talk about that next on First Things First. A little football now, new topic because it's on a new script. Is it possible that the untouchable dynasty that is the Patriots, you know, the one built on team first, paycheck second, you know, the one built on endless practices in the snow and rain, the one built on the gritty, hardcore discipline of Bill Belichick, isn't all peaches and cream? Apparently, there are fractures in the infrastructure in New England. According to reports, Tom Brady is now at the, quote, center of conflict with Bill Belichick. And that is spreading throughout the team. Cece, how important is it for Brady and Belichick to be on the same page for it to mean success in the New England franchise?
It's not important at all. I know people might be amazed, but it's not important at all. Tom Brady has made it clear that he's the quarterback of New England Patriots, and that's it. And Belichick is running everything else. You listen to the interviews that Brady through the years, he stays away from personnel decisions. He stays away from his friends that he's lost through the years that have been on the team. You know, he says, I'm going to miss these guys, but he never crosses over in the questioning what Bill is doing. And Bill has the ultimate authority. Tom knows in his relationship with the Kraft and their family that Bill is their guy. All right, now y'all can talk about fractions and everything. Anytime you have a Bill Belichick run organization, man, people aren't going to be happy. But that's what you are trading in for winning. This is what he does. The most difficult place to play in college football is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, with Nick Saban. Like, if you don't want the easy way, you want to learn football at this highest level, go to Tuscaloosa and play for Nick Saban. Now, if you want to learn football at its highest level in the NFL, you need to go to Foxborough and you need to enroll in Bill Belichick. And what you're going to do is you're going to set aside your own personal agenda, and you know that you're going to be taught at a level, and you know you're going to have a chance to win championships. So for me, I don't think there's some type of fraction there. I think that Bill is going to run it his way. That's the way it's going to be done. I think that Tom knows, and that's the only coach that he's dealt with. And Tom's his relationship with the Kraft family, he knows what the deal is. So I just believe this is the normal business of New England. And we just happen to be talking about it now.
When you say he knows what the deal is with the Kraft family, what do you mean?
I'm sure the Kraft and Mr. Kraft has let him know that Bill Belichick is going to be making all the football decisions. He's in control of the roster. He's in control of the food. He's in control of everything within the organization.
Well, the reason I think we're talking about this now is whatever their relationship had been, we are now in a place where Tom Brady's not there for the first day of OTAs. And I know you said yesterday maybe that's happened in the past when we didn't cover it 24/7 the way we do now, but it wasn't as much news. I saw Jeff Darlington report yesterday. He doesn't expect Brady to show up to much of the offseason. Now, that was couched as Brady, if you watch Tom versus Time, he talked a lot about how this offseason is going to be about his family, about how he's going to focus on that. And Bill Belichick, well, he hasn't named Tom Brady specifically. He said day before yesterday, listen, the guys aren't going to be here. I've talked to them. They have other obligations, or, you know, it's no big deal. He basically wanted to minimize it as much as possible. But what I think the Nick Saban comparison's a perfect one. But the difference, of course, is you get to graduate from Alabama. You go there to learn something and hopefully maybe become a pro, and then you go on from there. I think it's really hard to be a Patriot for more than 4 or 5 years. One of the reasons they have constant roster turnover is because that's how they do things. They're always churning the bottom of the roster. Nobody's job is ever safe. But the other reason they have constant roster turnover, I believe, is because the Patriots know that once you've been in that system, that grind, for more than 4 or 5 years, it can start to wear on you. I mean, you can read the quotes from the players that left this year, the quotes from Danny Amendola, even the quotes from Nate Solder, who had been there for quite some time. He'd been their left tackle for nearly a decade, talking about just how taxing it is. We know being a pro football player is taxing for everyone, but how particularly taxing it is in New England. And then you have Tom Brady, who's been there for 18 years, who's been the center of attention there for the bulk of those 18 years. I don't blame Brady at all if this has grown tiresome for him, even if it is a relationship that has worked out brilliantly for all parties.
You'll be shocked to know this is my take. I don't want to hear football players complain because it's too hard, even though you're playing to the very end. You're playing the last game of the season. I don't want to hear you complain that it's too cold outside and we have to practice in the snow, or that you call me out in the middle of a meeting and you say my name. I feel like it's such an honor to be able to play football and then to play at an organization where at any given year for the last 10, 15 years, you're going to be there at the end in some capacity. Mm-hmm. It just makes me feel like you've been given this unbelievable opportunity. You all go in with the same chances every year, and you guys are the ones that are left there standing. You want to complain about money, but don't complain it's too hard, or Bill Belichick is too hard on me, or I can't deal with all the pressures of being here. Because you're one of the few people that get to wear one of those rings that everyone else seems to covet in this league. That, like Chris, you worked your whole career, you never got one of those rings. So I have a hard time processing both. Do you, as a fan, can you understand my perspective?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I would love a ring. I wouldn't trade my career for being able to win a ring. But winning a ring is very, very special. That's what they do. Also, besides Nate Solder, the guys who had complaints about leaving New England, I want you to look back and see where they were when New England found them. Nate Solder was a high draft pick, but the rest of the players, Belichick makes these players into something. Look up Deion Lewis's resume, all right? Look up his great stats that he's had absent of New England. Every team in the NFL could have had him.
Amendola as well.
Okay. So all these guys made a constant choice to go somewhere, and the coach actually made them better, and the coach put them in a position that they wouldn't have gotten the paychecks that they got if it wasn't for Belichick. So be careful in your complaining, all right? Be careful, because it is football, and there's a certain amount of sacrifice that's everywhere. So it's not always the grass is greener. There is a different level of commitment. In New England, there's a different level of stress that goes with the job. But all 32 teams, there's a great deal of stress.
And and this won't surprise you, Jenna, I feel totally opposed to where you're at on this. I don't think football players should be considered in a different bucket than any of us in day-to-day jobs. Like, there are plenty of people that choose not to go to the most successful law firm or the most successful accounting agency or the most successful whatever, because these jobs, they enjoy more, they like their bosses more, they like the environment more.
But there's more of those jobs, too, all right? There's more of those jobs going around, all right? There's less football players. It's very, very rare. And Bill Belichick will always be a destination for football players who want to get better.
All right, we got to take a break. Coming up, let's get into some basketball. Was LeBron James too passive in Game 1? Does he need to be more aggressive? His coach seems to think so. Next on First Things First. Finally, the Golden State Warriors, remember when they were bad for a month to end the regular season? That seems like ages ago, as they made quick work of the Spurs in Game 2, winning 116 to 101. The Warriors have now won 9 straight playoff games at home, and both Kevin Durant and Klay seem to be in top form. They both had over 30 points. Nick, can the Spurs put up any resistance against Golden State?
No. I'd love to tell you yes, but the answer is no. They played as well as they could for the first half of that game. I thought the Spurs did well defensively, particularly in the first quarter. They made some shots. Patty Mills had a huge 4-point play to try to get himself going. And I'm like, man, the Spurs played great in that first quarter. They're up 6 points. Like, if you play as well as you can and you're up 6 points, you know trouble's coming. The third quarter has been the Warriors' quarter all year long. And my biggest takeaway from this game is more about the long-term projection for Golden State, because it does seem like Andre Iguodala has figured out this whole pacing thing. Because Iggy he looked washed the beginning of last year and then was valuable in the playoffs. He had his worst shooting year ever this year. Hit 3 huge three-pointers yesterday and was active. Almost had a massive dunk, just missed off the back of the rim. If that is what Iggy is, forget even the shooting, just the athleticism, what Iggy is going to look like these playoffs moving forward, that adds an important, dangerous wrinkle to the most talented team in the NBA.
Yeah, it was nice to see that last night, but also that was just the first quarter. He does play better defense when his shots going in. First quarter, he hit 3 big shots for them. So that's something that we haven't seen. That's something that we must watch going forward. But the question there is, can he do that for 2 months? Right. And that's going to be hard to do, given the lack of athleticism he's been able to show throughout the season. But if Clay is able to shoot the basketball like this, and to me, which I thought they would do, I thought they would change the offense. I thought that they would play with more pace and get Kevin Durant involved in the offense more so than they did those last 10 to 15 games of the regular season. And he's the igniter for that offense, especially with Steph not being in the lineup. So Golden State, man, they are an amazing shooting team. You start to see the way they pass the ball. You start to see, wow, why did people fall in love with the way they play basketball the last 3 years? In the last 2 games, we've seen versions of that.
I'm going to ask a ridiculous question just because I feel like I must.
I love it.
If somehow the Warriors figure out what they couldn't figure out down the stretch and start playing maybe a different kind of ball that works without Steph in the lineup, is there any chance there's a little bit of a reintroduction phase when Steph comes back in?
No, because he's been the focal. That's been their status quo for the last 3+ years. So, no, I think they can fall right back into that. The only thing that you might see when Steph comes back in is a regression defensively. They will not be as good. They will not be as long. They will not be as athletic defensively when Steph comes back. But their offense goes from a really good offense to a transcendent how do you stop it offense, so it more than makes up.
At Golden State, it becomes easier for the other 4 guys on the court when Steph steps on the court. And he is the predominant ball handler. So, man, he gets them shots. He gets them more space than they would have if he wasn't there.
And one other note as far as the other 4 guys on the court, nobody misses Steph more than Draymond. Draymond, we have learned, offensively, he's a great defensive player, an all-time defensive player. But offensively, when Steph's not out there, he is a total negative who has not, he's so used to playing with Steph the last few years that his offensive game has not adjusted to playing without Steph Curry. We saw that again yesterday. It didn't matter, but he wants Steph back as much as anybody.
All right, let's move on to the Cavs. They trail the Pacers in their opening round series 1-0 as they prepare for Game 2 on Wednesday night. No pressure on them, only expected to make the finals for the 4th straight season. LeBron had a triple-double in Game 1 with 24 points, but Coach Ty Lue said he needs more from his star.
He has to be aggressive, set the tone early. You know, we talked about that today also, just being aggressive early, setting the tone, especially for these new guys, bringing these guys along. So he understood that. But once again, he's always a guy trying to get his teammates off early, get them guys going, and then try to fill the game out. But be ready to set the tone game too.
Nick, would you say that was LeBron James' biggest problem in Game 1, that he wasn't aggressive enough?
Early. I think the key word that he was using there is early, and I think it was the first quarter, and that's where they lost that basketball game. Because you look at the overall totality of the game, you would say, he was driving to the basket repeatedly. He had 14 drives to the basket. That's 2 more than his season average. He was getting to the free throw line a lot. He couldn't hit a jump shot to save his life. Didn't hit a single shot outside of the restricted area. But it was early. They lost the game by being down 33-14 in the first quarter.
He didn't take a shot in the first quarter.
Well, he didn't take a shot till they were down double digits. He didn't make a shot in the first quarter. He was 0 for 3 from the field in the first quarter. So I agree with Ty Lue there, setting the tone early. I understand LeBron's strategy. I think it was, we got a lot of new guys. We got a lot of guys without playoff experience. And for us to do the standard that Chris has been holding him to, because he says it's the standard LeBron holds himself to. Can we win a title? He knows the only shot they have, however small it is if his teammates are flowing by the time they get to the NBA Finals. So tried to get that going early, but it was the wrong strategy for Game 1. They needed him to assert himself in Game 1 from the first 5 minutes of the game. He didn't, and the game got away from them. So what Ty Lue was saying there, I totally echo as far as early. I don't mind late in games, him trying to find open three-point shooters, particularly in a comeback. It's why they needed such a drastic comeback.
I don't mind LeBron starting that way because they've done it and been so successful, so I'm not going to question that. That's easy to do. Look at the game and be like, oh, LeBron should start more aggressive. Well, Kevin Love, Rodney Hood, whoever else on the court, they have to have the same mentality. LeBron, this will be a totally different first quarter. But if he's not able to hit his jump shot, Jenna, it's going to be a long night for the Cavs. So I disagree with Nick that they lost the game in the first quarter. They didn't lose the game. LeBron's inability to hit a jump shot, that's why they couldn't come back, because the only thing he could get was going to the hole. And if he had been able to hit a jump shot, it would have opened up the court, and it might have given the other guys some confidence to get their shot to go in. So, yes, it's easy to look at the first quarter and be like, they were awful in the first quarter, but they got to be better defensively.
Right.
In the first quarter, they got to be more aggressive on the defensive end. But if the other guys don't make shots, if Hood doesn't show up, like if George Hill, what are we going to get from him from a point guard standpoint? If Kevin Love doesn't score in double figures, who are the Cavs going to be?
Well, and listen, we talk about LeBron having a subpar game. He had 24 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists. The reason I bring up the 24 points is this. The other starters combined had 25 points. That's the fewest of any LeBron James fellow starters in a home playoff game ever. So they weren't going, I mean, nobody could hit a shot. All year long, the reason the Cavs had lost games they shouldn't have was their defense. Wasn't the reason they lost this game. It was the reason they were down huge in the first quarter. But if you would have said, hey, Pacers are going to score 98 going into the game, Cleveland would have said, okay, we'll take our chances with that. I'm not worried that LeBron's going to be, you can't hit a jump shot in this series. I will say this. If there is one silver lining for Cleveland, I think the silver lining is potentially, assuming this thing doesn't go 6-7 games, I don't think it will. I think had they come back from that deficit, it would have further set a precedent for the team that's a dangerous one, which is don't worry about it. We got this. And once you get to the next round, what they did against Toronto a month ago was special, coming back from that major halftime deficit. Once you get to the upper echelon of teams in the postseason, Toronto, Philly, whomever they face in the finals, you can lose a game in the first quarter. You can be down 15. If you're down 15 points to Houston, the game's over. I know they were down 30 to Philly and almost came back. That was an outlier, and Joel Embiid wasn't out there.
The other thing, it doesn't make sense for LeBron to play the first 12 minutes. All right, now you talk about they lost the game. LeBron was exhausted after the first quarter. All right? Yeah. It did not make any sense for him to play them first 12 minutes. So in the playoffs, the reason why you don't see great comebacks and everything is because it takes too much energy. It takes too much energy on the defensive end also to try to mount those comebacks. And that's why Cleveland came up short twice in trying to mount comebacks.
The other thing Ty Lue talked about were lineup changes, and he's going to make another lineup change at some point. Hasn't said what it is yet. Do you think they need to? What went wrong with the first lineup change? And like I said, maybe they're better off without actually having
a lineup,
a starting five.
I never liked the idea of Jeff Green as in the starting lineup when you're already also starting Kevin Love. To me, you can't, if you're going to go small in the front line, if you're going to go without a true center, it has to be because you are going all offense. And Jeff Green's not a good enough shooter for me to have a LeBron, Love, Jeff Green starting front court. So I would imagine it's going to be Larry Nance for Jeff Green. The other one that I think is possible is JR for Rodney Hood.
Yeah, that's the one I would go with. I would stay with Jeff Green because I don't think your bench is going to be hurt. I think Jeff Green is a better starter than Larry Nance Jr. Larry Nance Jr. has never been a starter. Him and Clarkson coming off the bench, playing together, that tandem coming from Los Angeles, I believe, is a better combination. And Rodney Hood, what is he going to be in the playoffs? Like, we don't know. JR, he's proven.
Right.
LeBron has confidence in him. Kevin Love has confidence in him. So I see them starting, especially if George Hill is still Nick, I see them starting JR at the 2 tonight compared to
tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow night.
But those are it's going to be one of those two or maybe both of those changes. I don't think it's going to be like Calderon in for George Hill unless it's an injury thing. Or it would either be JR for Hood, Nance for Green, or both of them.
Or Calderon for LeBron.
That one I say is unlikely.
Okay. Coming up, where will Des Bryant play next season?
He's got opinions on that.
Who does? Hey, welcome back to First Things First. Chris Canny is with us. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Jenna, Nick, CC. How's everybody?
We are good. We are still talking about Des Bryant. You would think that we would have had the story moved on, but yet now
there was major news that moved the story forward on Friday.
Des now has an idea of where he wants to play, and you might have a stake in this game. Let's go over Des Bryant's career year by year real quick. So good, great, good. Thursday, he thought the Cowboys would ask him to take a pay cut. Friday, Cowboys just cut him. Saturday, onward and upward. The 8-year veteran now looking for a new team. Apparently, the Packers, Saints, Bills, and Ravens are all showing interest, and it looks like Des Bryant says the Giants are his #1 choice. Not sure how the Giants feel about that. Chris, which team do you think is the best fit for Des Bryant?
Well, I think that's Des and a little bit of emotion talking because he wants the opportunity to get back at the Cowboys and play them twice a year. But I don't think that's going to happen realistically when you look at those NFC East teams. I don't think there's any room on their rosters for Des Bryant in terms of what he brings to the table. And also, you got to consider the culture when you try to absorb what comes along with Des Bryant. Not saying that he's a problem child, but you do realize that he's a high-strung player. He plays with a lot of emotion. So that's something that you have to plan for and you have to have an answer to. And so most locker rooms can't handle a guy like that. But some of the teams.
Two guys.
Most locker rooms can't handle a guy like that. You're saying with Odell there in New York.
Two guys, yeah. No, I understand what you're saying. Two guys. Yeah. It's not going to happen.
The Rams or anything.
Yeah, you know, exactly.
Right?
But listen, he's not going to end up with the NFC East team. But of the teams that are interested, I think the Baltimore Ravens make a lot of sense. If you look at Joe Flacco the last couple of years, he hasn't been very good. Last year, the Ravens were toward the bottom of the league in touchdown receptions. They had 20 last year. That was 23rd. So Des Bryant, adding him alongside with Michael Crabtree, I think that would be an improvement in terms of the talent on that roster at that position. Also, some places, San Francisco would make a lot of sense when you start talking about a big body wide receiver playing alongside Marquise Goodwin and Pierre Garçon. That would make sense a little bit as well. The Seattle Seahawks, they lost one of their big targets in Paul Richardson in free agency to the Washington Redskins, so it would make sense. And, of course, there's a little bit of similarities in the offense that they run in Dallas under Scott Linehan and what they would be running in Seattle with Brian Schottenheimer, that Air Coryell offense. So I'm starting to look at opportunities, fit, and then, of course, teams that have cap space that are going to be able to pay debt.
Seattle also lost Jimmy Graham, which is a noteworthy. There's going to be some balls to catch. It's fun. I'm not disagreeing with you for the sake of disagreeing with you. I have written down on my notes right here, Ravens are, then in all caps, awful fit. And so here's why I don't like the Ravens. I think Joe Flacco is done as even an above-average NFL quarterback. I just think that there's no – I think there's been no – what are you laughing about, Cece?
Joe Flacco is definitely not done. Like, as a quarterback?
I didn't say as a quarterback. I said...
Listen, the contract said he ain't done. They can't get rid of him right now.
Right. And so, but as an above-average NFL quarterback, I don't think Joe Flacco will have another year where we look at him and say he was one of the 15 best quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't, and where if he does have that year, it's going to be based on the strength of his long ball, the Mike Wallace pass, the pass interference pass, and I don't know that that is a great, perfect fit for Dez. One of the teams that was listed that is interested, though, is the team that I said Monday morning would be the team that I think would be the best-case scenario for the player, and that's Green Bay. Not just because they have the best quarterback in the world, not just because they got $14 million in cap space, but also because we've talked a lot about how when you're building out your wide receiving core, Cece, you mentioned you want to be like a basketball team. You want a point guard, a shooting guard, a power forward. They don't have the power forward. They got 5'10" Randall Cobb. They got 6'1" Davante Adams. They don't have a big guy and a big super athletic guy. And when we've talked about where Dez was at his best, when CeCe said yesterday, Tony Romo made Dez Bryant to a degree. It was, he's not open, but I'm going to throw him open. I am going to, even though he didn't get great separation, I'm going to trust my ability to make this play and the improvisation, running around and him breaking loose downfield. Nobody in the world is better at that than Aaron Rodgers. And they obviously lost Jordy Nelson. So for all those reasons, I think Green Bay would be the ideal fit for the player and for the team.
What factors into the fit for Dez Bryant? What do you think needs to is it the quarterback? Is it the offensive system? What do you think is the best thing that he needs to factor
That's a great question, Jenna, because as a wide receiver, more so than any other position, that we're system players. And not only do we need a play caller, not only do we need other assets, being a tight end, other receivers. If I'm a possession receiver, I need someone with speed. I also need a slot receiver. And the quarterback's ability, how much of the offense are they going to allow the quarterback to do to operate? So, Jenna, that's the heart of the matter. People are talking about cap space. People are talking about fit. To me, I must analyze who Dez Bryant is, all right? Dez Bryant is not a fast receiver. So some of the places that I would debunk him going to would be I don't see him going to Baltimore. And the reason why is because Michael Crabtree is not a speed receiver. Joe Flacco is a deep ball thrower. That's where he has his most success. So if Crabtree and Dez Bryant were on the same team, they would have the slowest starting 2 wide receivers in the NFL. Now, there's some other things I disagree with. New York Giants, Brandon Marshall, good friend of mine. I believe Dez Bryant is a better football player than him right now. So if they were looking to get a big body to go opposite of Odell, forget the personalities. Dez Bryant would be a person that I would talk to. Now, would I be able to afford him? Do I want to bring his attitude into the locker room with Odell Beckham? And it might be good for 14 games, but it wouldn't be good those 2 Dallas games. Because in those Dallas games, he would want the ball every time. So I believe it's something you should look at, but I don't believe it's something that is a great fit. The best fit for him, to me, is where no one is mentioned but you, is San Francisco. They have the speed receiver. They also have the cap space. They also have a up-and-coming bright quarterback. But more importantly, they have the offensive mind in Kyle Shanahan that can call plays to be able to dictate what he wanted Dez to do. Now, that is a wide receiver-friendly offense. I believe Dez is a better receiver than Pierre Garçon at this point in his career. So, for me, the things that I look at, Seattle, no. San Francisco, I believe, is the best fit for Dez. Now, he also money-wise. You know, how much money does Dez want? Because I believe that will have something to do with where he ends up.
Yeah, you're talking about you got to have the money to pay Dez Bryant. It comes down to teams with cap space, and the teams that we mentioned, even though we might not necessarily agree on fit,
right,
are all teams that have cap space. So it's going to have to be a situation where the dollars and cents make sense to Dez Bryant's camp.
What type of contract do you? I think he's going to sign a 1-year deal. I don't know. What do you? I would imagine 1 year, $9 million is about where it's going to fall.
Well, I mean, if Michael Crabtree is making $7 million a year, you would think that Dez Bryant would make slightly more than that. So maybe it's a $9-10 million deal, somewhere in that range over a couple of seasons, 2 to 3 years.
All right, Chris, stick around. Coming up, how big of a deal is the reported rift between Bill Belichick and Tom Brady? Next on First Things First.
This is Nick Wright, and I wanted to tell you that this episode of the First Things First podcast is brought to you by Buffalo Wild Wings. There's a new boss in town at Buffalo Wild Wings, and he deals in bacon. It's the Bacon Boss Burger, featuring bacon 3 different ways and a blanket. I said a blanket of white cheese sauce. And he's joined by other new favorites like the smothered cheesesteak quesadilla, sweet chili shrimp, and Alaskan Cod Classic. All pair perfectly with a Sam 76, a fruity ale with the crisp finish of a lager. Hurry in today. Try them all before they're gone at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports, available for only a limited time while supplies last. And please, of course, drink responsibly. Now, back to the show.
Back here, First Things First with Chris Canty. Is there a price to pay for winning? Some of the New England Patriots think so. We've all heard the stories of the tight ship Bill Belichick runs over there, the crazy practices, the calling out of the players, the high expectations, the low paychecks. But they win, and everyone's happy. Or are they? According to reports, Tom Brady is now at the, quote, center of conflict with Bill Belichick. And that has players jumping ship and others like Rob Gronkowski contemplating retirement. Also Gronkowski. Chris, how important is it for Brady and Belichick to be on the same page?
Well, here's the thing. Let's start with this. Most head coaches that are highly successful in the NFL, they're at sometimes can be a jerk. That's just what it is. Out of the 4 head coaches that I played for, 3 of them fit that bill. The 3 coaches that I had that were like that won Super Bowls.
I'm trying
the other guy that we had that was a head coach, he didn't turn out so well as a head coach. So ultimately what happens is you have to have a head coach in place that makes guys have that sense of urgency in the building to take advantage of every single opportunity to get better, because that's the culture that breeds success in our league. You don't want complacency to set in. And that's what Belichick has been great at being able to do. Mm-hmm. And for the most part of his tenure as the head coach, he's had Tom Brady as an ally in making that happen. But now it's gotten to the point where Tom Brady and the rest of those guys on that Patriots team want Bill Belichick to trust them. And at some point, the head coach has to empower his players and allow them to take ownership of the team. It just doesn't feel like Bill Belichick has done a good job of towing that line, and now he's got a situation where the players seem like they're revolting against him.
Well, and I hate to keep bringing up the same instance, but I do think a lot of this has stemmed from the Malcolm Butler situation. And I say that because, not because the players adored Malcolm Butler so much, even though he does seem like he was a very well-liked teammate, but because they ask you to make so many sacrifices. Less money, practice in the rain, practice in the snow, as some of the players we've left said was a pain. The constant browbeating, all of that, right? And guess what, though? We will always put you in position to win. We will always do what is best for the team. We are asking you to sacrifice your personal stats, your personal ego, in lieu of what is best for the team. And if there is the belief, as we've heard from some of the quotes from the players that have left, that, well, all of a sudden the guy making us do that didn't do it himself, all of a sudden that guy put, whether it was a personal conflict, trying to prove a point, a contract battle, whatever it was, in higher priority than doing what was best for the team in the bleeping Super Bowl, well, now all of a sudden, that message doesn't resonate quite as well. Now all of a sudden, that's tougher to swallow. And so I think Bill Belichick for a long time has operated, I mean, you can look at down to the way he dresses. I can be
He's a phenomenal dresser,
okay,
by the way. I love that cutoff.
I can be this way because I'm better than everybody and because I know better than everybody. The moment there's all of a sudden a slight crack in that armor, I think you start seeing what you said, not quite a mutiny, but you start seeing more of these types of reports this offseason than I would say in the last 4 or 5 off seasons combined.
But Cece argues that it's, well, that it's not a crack in the armor, that it was intentional, that this was the decision that he decided to make for whatever reason, and that's the way he runs the organization.
Yeah, and it's not going to change this offseason. They are not going to have some type of democratic society, like they're going to put together a team council. Like, nothing's going to change. Like, this is not no new news. Like, every good coach I ever had in football, now you can talk about baseball, volleyball, some other stuff. You might have liked them. All my good coaches, I did not like them. My high school coach, I hated him. And on my Hall of Fame speech, he was the most influential coach I've ever had in my life. You know the reason why? Because he told me the things that no one else would tell me. He made me go places that I would never go, psychologically, physically. He made me do things that I didn't think I was capable of doing. And that's what you want from a football coach. When you coach in tennis, golf, badminton, you can have some other type of coach. It can be warm and fuzzy. But Bill Belichick, if I go back and play football, that dude right there, he can coach me. You know the reason why? Because he's going to teach me the game. He's going to give me an advantage when I go onto the field. And also, he's going to police the rest of the team. All I got to do is do my job, show up to work and do my job, and I'm going to get a chance to win me a championship. And for me, that's very important. I can't question how important it is for you, how important it is for you, Nick, but it's important for me. For a guy who spent his life playing pro football, that I would have a chance to win. And Bill Belichick would give me that chance. Would I like everything he did? No, but it would give me the chance to win. And I know it would maximize my talent. It would get the best out of me. And at the end of the day, that's really important to me.
Absolutely, CC, and you said it right there. Coaching, and Tom Coughlin always used to address the team this way. And before he gave us a criticism, he would say coaching is making men do what they don't want to do so they can become what they want to become. And it takes a little bit of a fire breather to be able to get that message across and set the agenda for the team. But there also comes a point where that head coach then has to empower the leaders on that team, and they have to take ownership of it. And I guess that's a fine line, and you're seeing right now where Bill Belichick and Tom Brady aren't necessarily on the same page in terms of Bill Belichick trusting Tom and the rest of the leaders on that team.
Well, that's something, because this is the first time we're talking about him not trusting Bill Belichick or not Tom Brady or not wanting to empower the leaders on his team, because that's never something we've really discussed in the past couple
It's been there. Okay?
Maybe it has.
When Randy Moss left New England, Tom Brady was not happy. Did he go on to have success afterwards? Absolutely. There have been other moves that the players were not happy about. Lawyer Malloy, when they cut him. Richard Seymour, when they traded him. Last year, Chandler Jones gave up on him, sent him off to Arizona. This is not new. This is the first time we're talking about it.
But what about the friction between Brady and Belichick? Do you think that's new?
No, here's the thing. I think it's becoming a thing because it's been so long with those two at the helm. It's 18 years. Right. And so at some point, you have to trust me that I know exactly what you want, and I'm going to do everything that it takes to put our team in the best position to be successful. And I think that's where the rift comes into play. Not to mention everything that happened with the Jimmy Garoppolo saga and him forcing that trade by making Bill Belichick go to Robert Kraft and say, okay, we got to deal this guy.
Well, and I've heard you talk about, Chris, that there became a point in your career where the coaches couldn't really teach you that much anymore.
No.
Right? I'm correct in saying
Yes,
that,
absolutely.
right? There was a point in your career where it was more of a collaborative effort. And I know how highly you regard and how highly you speak of the late Denny Green, because he seemed to embrace that collaborative effort.
Yes.
And that's where I think some of the Brady-Belichick conflict is I don't think Belichick's down for that. Like, I don't know how much more Tom Brady has to learn from Bill Belichick. Like, he is as smart of a football player, as accomplished a football player as we've ever seen. Go ahead.
Every great leader, you're going to have friction with the person who is the general. It is never going to always be nice. Denny Green, had great things to say. Yeah, but there's a lot of things, too, I don't tell you. No reason why? Because they're not good for you to know. All right? There will always be friction. At the top of that, Bill Walsh and Joe Montana. Let's not forget where Joe ended his career. Not only did Joe end his career somewhere else, Jerry Rice. So the greatest that have ever played this game, they have had friction with someone like Belichick who was over their career. And yes, they had Super Bowl wins together, had done tremendous things together. But yes, when you're to that point, you're going to have some friction at the top. And this is not unusual for me to see what Belichick and what Brady potentially are going through. I don't make it out to be as big as you guys make it out to be. It's the price of doing business with a Belichick, with a Saban, with a Bill Parcells. That's what you're going to get.
The only reason I think that it's becoming a bigger deal, CC, and where I might disagree with you, is because the fact that Josh McDaniels didn't take that Indianapolis coach job makes me feel like at some point Bill Belichick's tenure as head coach of the Patriots is coming, and I think it's sooner rather than later. But the fact that Jimmy G is not in line to be the successor to Tom Brady makes it feel like ownership has sided with the quarterback in saying that they're going to be transitioning from Bill Belichick, but Tom Brady might be around a couple of seasons longer.
This is what Robert Kraft said. He said, we expect Tom Brady to be our quarterback the next couple of years. But he also said on the record that people don't seem to pick up that Bill Belichick can coach here as long as he wants to. Now, to me, that seems like to extend beyond when Brady is going to retire.
All right, Chris, thanks
Great
so
job,
much.
man. By the way,
stuff
congrats
today.
to Chris Canty's radio station. Very monumentous. They beat the opposing station in New York City for the first time ever. It's a huge deal. I'm a radio nerd.
Yeah, that's the first time someone congratulated his replacement.
Wow.
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 The other side, first things first.
Hey, man.
Oh, hey, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. Didn't even see you there. I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. This is Nick Wright. It is hump day. We are in
Jenna,
it. We are
don't
ready
tell
to
me
go.
the camera surprised you.
Yeah, I had no idea. I was just hanging out here all morning, and then I looked up, and there you were. So, how you doing?
That's a great looking suit, Chris
Great
Carter.
suit, Chris Carter.
I think you look lovely, Jenna.
Love your tie,
People
Nick. We're
can't-
just going to start with
I'm being honest. People can't see the shoes Jenna wears on camera, but they're lovely as well.
Yeah, I think that
What is happening?
people on Twitter, what they should do is you should cast a vote for the people you think are the best dressed in morning television. And I just think it will be way, way up there.
Okay, I'll do a poll. I'll start a Twitter poll. Who are the other? We'll
are the
discuss off the air who
Just
the
morning
candidates are.
TV.
Morning
anything.
TV. All right,
News,
got it.
sports, or anything. Morning TV.
All right,
Come bring it.
Coming for your head, Morning Joe.
I know, Joe. It's okay, Joe.
Yeah,
It's not coming
I'm coming
back.
for your head.
Or you
Back
make
to
up.
Scarborough.
Walk that back just a little bit. Why don't we talk about some sports, because that seems more comfortable. Welcome to the NFL offseason of reportedly disgruntled superstars. You have your Odell, you have your Dez, maybe Tom Brady. Now, is it Aaron Rodgers? In a report by Yahoo Sports, Rodgers is supposedly frustrated with the organization after not being consulted on personnel decisions. Just this offseason, the Packers fired his quarterback coach in Alex Van Pelt and released his favorite target in Jordy Nelson. After this report, Rodgers tweeted out #FakeNewsTuesday, so we know how he feels. He met the media yesterday discussing the offseason.
That's the toughest part about the whole thing, is losing guys over the years, the Jordys, the James Jones, the A.J. Hawks, the John Coons, the Julius Peppers, guys you get close to. And again, those are team decisions. I know my role, and that's to play to play quarterback the best that I can, and the team is going to try and put the right guys in place, the right coaches in place, the right players in place. You just have to trust the process.
We haven't heard that before. A lot of this has to come down to, Cece, whether players should have the right to be able to either be consulted on or meddle with or have some say in personnel decisions. What was your reaction to the Yahoo Sports report about Aaron Rodgers?
It's what I've believed. I didn't believe that Aaron Rodgers wanted some type of input, but as a veteran player, there's a lot of things that once you start to understand the game and once you've had success at the NFL game, there's other things that you have to have motivate you and other connective things that help you play better or other things that draw your interest outside of football. Now, when you get into an NFL locker room and then you go home, there's not a lot of people that you're going to meet and encounter that have a life or understand like what you're going through. So a lot of that camaraderie and a lot of the things that you really rely on is the locker room providing you with peers, not a bunch of young guys, because once you get beyond that, the things that you want to spend your time at, the things that you might want to conversate about, you might not be able to do that with a great percentage of the locker room. So when you lose a Julius Pepper, when you lose some of these other things, as a veteran player, it hurts you because it takes away some of your enjoyment and the people who you can talk to and who you can trust. As Aaron Rodgers gone throughout his career, let's look at how he started his career with Brett Favre. With Brett Favre not necessarily taking him under his wing to teach him about pro football. So he had to learn a lot on his own. He had to develop a lot of relationships on his own. And when you start getting rid of those players and you see these players go other places and continue to play, like a Julius Peppers, and have some type of success, it eats away at you because you like the locker room, but you like some older guys who are mature, guys who you've had battles with, you've had success stories with, so it affects the players. But to me, that doesn't give you the intel or the knowledge that you should be involved in the personnel. He doesn't know personnel better than the front office knows personnel. And if he did get involved in personnel, how much money do you pay him? The guys who are friends with Aaron, do you pay them more because Aaron Rodgers, he's the best quarterback in the league? And as a player, you get too emotional. So, no, I don't think any player, I don't care from Tom Brady to Aaron Rodgers to any, I don't believe they know the personnel as well as the front office or are equipped to do that type of job.
You understand why the personnel decisions made around the Green Bay Packers would land differently with Aaron Rodgers than the personnel decisions made with the New England Patriots have landed with Tom Brady, because the Patriots have had year after year high-level, unprecedented success. Rodgers probably feels, man, we made a Super Bowl almost a decade ago, haven't been back since. I've been playing at this super high level, so the way we've been doing business maybe isn't the smartest way to do business. But I don't think, of all those guys you mentioned, Cece, Jordy, Julius, that he mentioned, Kuhn, I think this is about the move they made. I think the impetus of this is about a non-player move. Alex Van Pelt. That was the first name we heard. That was the one name. His quarterback's coach. Thank you, Jenna. That he went on the record, and Aaron's very cautious with what he says in interviews. He has admitted he records on his own line every interview he does, so he can't be misquoted. And if he is misquoted, he has proof he was misquoted. So he's very judicious with what he says in these interviews. And he went out of his way to say the Alex Van Pelt thing surprised me, confused me a little bit. And I think that Aaron maybe even agrees with Cece that players shouldn't have a ton of say in how this is done. And there's 32 teams in the league. I don't know of a team in the NFL that they are heavily consulting players saying, what should we do with this personnel move? But I wouldn't blame Aaron Rodgers if he thought, the one place I should have some say in is who the flipping quarterback's coach is. I'm the only quarterback on this team that matters. You guys can say we put all this time into Brett Hundley and Joe Callahan and then instantly move on from them the year after. Like, the quarterback's coach works with me. And to move on from him without asking me if I want you to move on from him, if they had asked
him, what do you think he was going to say?
I think he would. My guess is he would say no, but I think he would feel, even if they just tell him ahead of time, we're moving on from him. Even if they just give you the heads up. Like, that's the part.
Okay, if they give you the heads up, then they start a precedent. Now, other things that I'm starting to do or thinking about doing, do I have to run them past Aaron too?
I think it's...
Let me tell you what's more important. It's more important that Mike McCarthy, that's what he's done. He's coached quarterbacks his career. He's called plays his whole career. And if Mike McCarthy can't work with Alex, I don't care what Aaron thinks. Because the head coach is spending more time. And the head coach is the offensive mind. And the head coach is the one who wants to get rid of him. So it's not as if the wide receiver coach didn't like the quarterback coach. They didn't get along. It was the head coach, obviously. And he spends more time with them. I think that time that the head coach and the offensive staff spends with that quarterback coach, they know him better than Aaron Rodgers does.
I think that very well may be true, which is why Aaron Rodgers, you can argue, shouldn't have veto power over this decision. But I do think when he's the best player, I believe, arguably in the history of your franchise, one of the greatest franchises in pro sports, a simple heads up would have gone a long way. And when you say it sets a precedent, like, I don't think it's a bad precedent to set as far as in this very specific instance. If they're going to change the time of the quarterback meetings, right, I would think now that's different than we're making some major adjustment, we're running past.
Right, and then we're also making a huge assumption that Alex, the quarterback coach, that he was good. Like, we're making a huge assumption that, hey, because Aaron Rodgers is good, maybe his quarterback coach is good. But what I'm going to trust is what I know about the NFL and Mike McCarthy. And I trust Mike McCarthy in coaching quarterback and calling offensive plays more than I do any other information that's come out of Green Bay.
Well, does it factor in at all that they're going to start to work with him now on this new contract coming up, and obviously money is going to be a big issue, and they want to be in each of their good graces? I know that he doesn't know much about personnel, and he doesn't know much about the salary cap, but he knows Jordy Nelson. He knows who he likes to throw the ball to. He knows who he's been successful with. Maybe he doesn't have veto power, but maybe just so that you have this, like, olive branch of, hey, we're going to start to sit down soon and start negotiating this. We want this to be okay with all parties involved. Yeah. Isn't that, can you extend
I wouldn't do
that?
I wouldn't do it, because one day they're going to come knocking on his door. All right? One day they're going to get rid of Aaron Rodgers, too. That's the inevitability of being a pro player. That's one of the things that we all have in common. One day they're going to take that jersey off your back, and you got to go. You got to go somewhere else to be if you want to work. And that's going to happen to Aaron too, as good as he is. So then what do they do then? Do they give him some type of warning? Hey, Aaron, over the next couple of years, we're thinking about phasing you out. Like, well, how should they handle that point?
But I don't think you have to worry about that point right now. I just think that hurt feelings and the idea of disrespect, no matter what you do for a living, are a real thing. And I think that if they had to do it all over again, would they have given him a heads up on Alex Van Pelt? Would they have tried to set aside precedent to a degree to make, because maybe they didn't realize he was going to react with the way he did. And Cece, I agree. I don't know how good Alex Van Pelt is.
Thank you.
Which is why I'm not making the argument they made a mistake in getting rid of Alex Van Pelt. The argument I'm making is I think they made potentially a mistake in not factoring in how
NFL
Aaron
front
Rodgers
offices are making a mistake if they start going to players, asking them what they think about who should be here and who shouldn't be here.
Regardless of the player.
NFL front offices are also making a mistake if they start asking the players who should be coaching the players.
Cece, let me just ask you real quick. Do you draw no distinction between asking somebody their permission to a degree giving someone a heads up?
I could care less what they think.
But what about, but what about giving them a heads up? Aaron, this
I don't need to give them a
heads
up.
Okay. Well, I
don't need to give them a warning.
Even if it's the Tom Brady's and the Aaron Rodgers.
What's the downside to it is my question.
What's the upside?
The upside is your best player's not upset.
Yeah, he's going to be upset anyway.
You don't think...
What you do is open yourself up for other things that he thinks he should be involved in, and he shouldn't. People in the front office, they run the front office. You're on the field, play down there. That's what we're paying you for. All right? The personnel, someone else has handled that. That's someone else's role in this organization.
We're going to have a former Packer on the show, Greg Jennings, and we'll discuss with him as well coming up. But on the other side, how have the Pelicans been able to pull off 2 road wins as underdogs? That's next on First Things First. Pelicans and Blazers in the Brow finishing the alley-oop while falling down
They gotta stop. Listen, man. You gotta stop throwing these high degree of difficulty alley-oops to my man Anthony Davis. How many times have we shown him butt first?
Yeah.
Anthony Davis catch an alley-oop and end up falling because he had to spin to go get it. I mean, it's a hell of a play by him, but come on,
This is one of many spectacular plays the Pelicans had in last night's game.
Yes.
All right, same game. Playoff Rondo is our favorite Rondo. Sick pass to Drew Holiday.
Man, put a little English on it.
We miss Rondo. Like, we thought his basketball career was over
miss
with.
this Rondo.
Now Rondo, oh, my goodness. And it was helped by the injury of Boogie Cousins, because now Alvin Gentry, the coach, has the ball in Rondo's hands so much more than when they had the Twin Towers.
Absolutely. He's been awesome in these playoffs, just like he was in last year's playoffs, those first couple games before he hurt his elbow.
All right, more now on the Pelicans and the Trailblazers. Pelicans, the underdogs in this one, so the fact that they stole a road win in Game 1 was pretty big. Until last night when they stole a road win in Game 2, even bigger. Kleptos. New Orleans beat Portland again, 112-102. Drew Holiday leading the way with 33 points. Your brow, Anthony Davis with 22 points, 13 boards. Chris, how do you think the Pelicans are able to go up and be up 2-0 against this Trailblazers team?
Well, to go on the road and get up 2-0 in the series against a hot team like Portland, and we know what they can do offensively, there's a lot of things you could talk about. Of course, a lot of conversation will start with the brow, but the reason why is their defense. I mean, they have the answer for Portland, their offensive sets. They were able to negate the type of shots they were getting. Portland typically gets a lot of clean looks at the three-point line. The Damian Lillard, C.J. McCollum combination has been flat outplayed by playoff Rondo and Drew.
And coming in, we all thought that the Blazers' backcourt was going to be the backcourt to beat. No one anticipated it was going to be the other way around.
Right, and then the thing also that's nice about the playoffs, you really start seeing some stories that you're not necessarily following. The Drew Holiday. Since Boogie Cousins was injured, Drew Holiday is their next scoring option, is probably their best one-on-one defensive player. So you start seeing some of these things, and, man, how did the Pelicans, how did they finish the season like that? You're able to see those stories. Rondo playing at a level that we saw last year in the playoffs, the first couple games before he got hurt. But their backcourt being able to slow down and negate the backcourt of Portland, their overall defense, being able to hold them to 100 points, under 100 points in the first game, you're going to win a lot of road games in the playoffs. So Alvin Gentry, you have to give him a lot of credit. When Boogie Cousins got hurt, a lot of people said their season was over with, but not only to get into the playoffs, say we're not satisfied, and to be up 2-0 on the number 3 seed in the Western Conference, tremendous amount of accolades and hand clap that we have to give to Alvin Gentry and that staff for going to Portland and taking it 2-0.
Well, and I mean, to win the first 2 on the road, just a little context here. That's only happened 25 times in NBA history. The team that did that, if you take the first 2 from the home team, they're 21-4. So the Pelicans are now historically heavy favorites in the series. The last 10 times that's happened, those teams are 9-1. The one loss in there was actually Rondo's team last year, and most people don't think they would have lost that had he stayed healthy against the Celtics. The 8-1, Bulls versus the Celtics. But what we have happening here is a remarkable turnabout because the better backcourt has been the Pelicans. No one could have seen that coming. How did the Blazers get the 3 seed in the West? Because of their backcourt. Damian Lillard, maybe first-team All-NBA Damian Lillard, and a fringe All-Star candidate, C.J. McCollum. Well, now we're 2 games in. Damian Lillard has been the 5th best guy in the series. That can't happen. Anthony Davis has been Anthony Davis, and Drew Holiday has been spectacular on both ends. But to Cece's point on Alvin Gentry, this I think will surprise people. The Pelicans finished this year first in the NBA in pace, the fastest team in the league. But you got to keep in mind, they were nowhere near first in pace the first 40 games of the year when Boogie Cousins was out there. So what you always say we won't talk about coaches. What Gentry did to midseason, say we're going to change the way we play. We don't have the same personnel we did. Now we're going to go run. and to be able to adjust on the fly. They have since March 1st not only a top 5 offense, but a top 5 defense in the league. That's since March 1st. We're almost at the end of April. Like, this Pelicans team has maybe been better than we thought it could be, because you look at the roster and you're like, well, they only have 4 above-average NBA guys. But those 4 guys are all playing excellent basketball. The backcourt, Anthony Davis and Nikola Mirotic.
How does Portland get back into this? You look at Damian Lillard last night, 17 points on 18 shots. How much do they need him to step up?
Man, Damian Lillard, if you're getting outscored by Drew Holiday by 10 points in the head-to-head, but it's not only because the points per game, Rondo and Drew Holiday, they're averaging about 37, 38 points. Same as Portland.
But McCollum and Lillard.
Yeah, but the efficiency of it. McCollum's shooting 41%. Damian Lillard shooting 30, a little above 30-something%.
Yep.
So they got to get better shot selection, and they can't shoot that poorly in Portland Bill to come out of this hole that they're in. So a lot of it is shooting the ball, the type of shots that they're getting. Most of their shots are contested compared to they're typically very good off the pick and roll, and they get some wide open looks during the game that they're not getting.
Listen, it's a great point. McCollum and Lillard are averaging the exact same number of points as Holiday and Rondo. Both 38 points per game cumulatively. But McCollum and Lillard are doing it on 36% shooting, and Rondo and Holiday are doing it on 50% shooting. So if not only does Portland not have the advantage in the backcourt, and by the way, that disregards defense. Like, keep in mind, obviously, Drew Holiday is giving you a better edge defensively than Damian Lillard is, and then C.J. McCollum is. They are a negative defensively. Holiday is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, and Rondo can be at times a careless defender, but he can be a good defender. And then we're not even talking about Anthony Davis. If you were to tell me last week the Pelicans are going to be up 2-0, how did it happen? I would have said, well, in game 1, the Brown must have gone like 45, 20, and 5. And in game 2, he must have gone like 40, 15, and 10. Anthony Davis has been good, but not much better than his season averages. He's averaging about what his regular season points per game are, a little higher in rebounding.
Yeah.
It's because of the backcourt.
Yeah, but he did set the tone in game number 1.
Yes.
And that's the most important. When you go out 1-0, it was because of the superstar. Also, you got to give the superstar credit because of his overall versatility. Is he the best big man in basketball? Yes, but he's the only big man, too, that could go from a post-up offense to now a transition offense and not miss a beat.
All right, so the Pelicans take a 2-0 series lead over the Trailblazers. Cavs getting ready for their second game. Coming up, what do they have to do to even things up?
You could be looking at that face, and that won't be happy. Oh, he won't be worried. Oh, he won't be.
Back after this. Finally, speaking of Danny Ainge, we weren't. The Celtics rolled to a 120-106 win over the Bucks to take a 2-0 series lead. Jaylen Brown became the youngest Celtic ever to score 30 in a playoff game. Nick, can the Bucks rally back against this young Boston team?
I think they can, but they are going to have to make some significant adjustments. And usually when we talk about adjustments, we're talking about coaching, talking about change or rotation. That's not the type of adjustment I mean. The type of adjustment I mean is get anything whatsoever out of their backcourt. If you'd have told me going into this that after the first 2 games, Giannis would be averaging 33 and Chris Middleton would be averaging 28, I'd say, okay. Milwaukee will take that. Giannis has been the best player in the series. Chris Middleton's been an awesome number 2 option. But what I didn't see coming, what I don't think anyone saw coming, was the Bucks' backcourt all of a sudden not just getting slightly outplayed, but dramatically outplayed by the Celtics' backcourt. Look at the comparison between the 2 backcourts. You have in the 2 games, the Celtics' starting backcourt are outscoring the Bucks 96-25. Tony Snell has 2 points in each of the first 2 games, and Eric Bledsoe's averaging 11 points per game while not playing good defense. Like, that's the adjustment they need, CeCe. They need their backcourt to show up for them to have a chance at winning these next 2 games at home.
Also, the coach got to tighten up their rotation. They're playing too many players. Like, they out there, they act like it's a preseason game. They play 12, 13. I mean, they play too many guys.
They played everyone they suited up last night.
Yeah, like it's too many guys. Like, they need to tighten up the rotation. Now, they've had a lot of injuries. throughout the season. So when they came into the playoffs, it was like, okay, Jabari Parker, what are we going to get out of it? Nothing. They've got nothing out of him. So for me, I was listening to Shaq last night, and he said if Pat Riley was coaching this team, he'd come into the locker room, tell 2 or 3 of them, you got 5 minutes of work in the next game. You better show me something. If not, you ain't going to never play the rest of this series. So they got a couple. Jabari Parker, you mentioned the backcourt, but Brogdon's been injured. Last year's Rookie of the Year. I don't know if he's on a minute restriction, but he's got to play more minutes for Milwaukee for them to be able to get back in this series.
And just quickly on the flip side of it, because the question was about Milwaukee, so we wanted to address that. But again, all the credit in the world to Boston. Like Boston, their players, which player on Boston is not playing up to his full potential right now? Like Tatum had a rough game last night, but guess what? Tatum was good in the first game, and then Jaylen Brown was awesome for him. There was a moment you pointed out before the show, CC, that stuck out to you when we talk about how good Brad Stevens is, how good the coaching is. What'd you see at the end of, was it the third quarter?
End of the third quarter.
The Bucks have cut it to 12.
3.5 seconds to go. They miss a free throw. They immediately call a timeout, so it gets the ball at half court. He calls a play. They end up getting maybe the second or third look that they wanted of the original design of the play, but Larkins ends up hitting a clutch 3 to send the lead to 15 points. But their ability to be in sync, to know, let's call a timeout, all right? Let our coach call a play. And that right there, just when you get into playoff basketball, those set pieces, when you can on a regular basis draw up something and get guys, look, it gives guys tremendous amount of confidence.
This team is really clicking on all cylinders at a very, very good time, without many of the key components that we thought we were going to see when the season started. Before the game, Kyrie Irving sent a text message to everyone on the team. No one said what it was, but it was words of encouragement. It was something that actually everybody responded to and was very excited about. And they were like, we're all sort of in this together. And then they go out and they play a game like that.
Listen, they scored 120 points on 90 possessions. This was a Celtics team going into the series I thought would struggle to score 90 points in any game just because playoff basketball gets tougher to score. You don't have a go-to scoring option. They're making it work. Like, all the credit in the world to the Celtics and Terry Rozier, who, while Eric Bledsoe might not know who you are, I know who you are. You were the untouchable Terry Rozier, a punchline for a long time. You were excellent last night. And in Game 1, he hit the shot that people thought was the game winner. The Celtics been great.
Good stuff. What people do you think thought was the game winner? Oh, just people that tweeted prematurely?
Well, you, our friend Gus Johnson, everybody thought it was the game winner.
All right, moving on. If sports says you're only as good as your last game, then the Cavs aren't great. LeBron and company looking to right their ship in Game 2 against the Pacers. Game 1 didn't go exactly as planned for Cleveland, mainly because they lost. Cleveland has struggled all season long with constant lineup changes and the pressure to return to finals for the 4th straight season. However, not surprisingly, Ty Lue said there is no reason to panic just yet.
The mood is good. You know, I think guys understand what it takes to win, to beat this team. Got to be aggressive, got to be more physical, got to own our space offensively. They picked us up full court, they denied swing passes, denied elbow passes. So we just got to be stronger with the ball. We can't turn the ball over 17 times. We got to be physical with the ball, own our space, and we'll be fine.
CC, Coach Lue mentioned a little bit the turnovers, the coming out being a little bit more aggressive, a quicker start than in Game 1. What do you think that the one key is for the Cavs to even up this series? It's
got to be a quick start by LeBron. If the coach is saying a quick start, he's already said it the day before, challenged LeBron to that's what they have to do. And that's LeBron getting into the scoring, not getting everyone else into the game. That, to me, it really will play itself out. But if LeBron, and what you want to watch is how many field goals he can get outside the paint. If he can get 5 to 8 field goals outside the paint,
because he didn't in Game 1.
No, it's going to open up the rest of the court for them. It will get the other guys open looks. But at the end of the day, it's not always about one thing. And you got to be able to make shots. You can say whatever you want to, but you got to be able to make shots. In the NBA, there are too many good shooters, and when you can't put the ball in the basket, LeBron doesn't have any help, you get off to the slow start. And then guys start to get a little tight. One thing we have to worry in this situation, a lot of these guys have not had success with LeBron. So if this game remains tight and we get into the second half, how will they react to that? That's another thing that I want to watch besides LeBron and getting off the mark quick.
Listen, I know LeBron said, I'm not concerned. I've been down 3-1 in the finals, like a couple days off. We're going to find out if that's the truth or not based on how he approaches the first quarter. Because there's only been 2 instances in the Eastern Conference playoffs since LeBron's been back in Cleveland where he's gone into a game trailing in the series. They actually happened in the same series. The first year he was there, and by the way, a lot of similarities between that first-year team and this team. Unproven, not playoff experience for his teammates, not a lot of experience as a
first year
cohesive
back
unit.
in Cleveland?
Yes, the first year back in Cleveland. I should have mentioned that. That was 4 years ago, the year they made their first finals, LeBron's fifth straight. Like, Kyrie didn't have finals experience. Kevin Love didn't have any of the experience that we now attribute to them. They were down 1-0 to Chicago in a series. LeBron in Game 2 took 29 shots. They were then down 2-1 to Chicago in the same series. LeBron in Game 4 took 30 shots, including the game winner in the corner to even up that series. Like, LeBron, we saw him his first year in the finals after they were down 0-1 and Kyrie was injured. What did he do the rest of the finals? Took 30-plus shots a game because that was their only path to victory. The next year in the finals, once they were down 3-1, back-to-back 41-point games. When LeBron's back is up against the wall, if he feels like we have to have this game, then he will approach it the way CC said yesterday. He'd like him to approach it more, be more aggressive. I'm not convinced that's the LeBron we're going to see tonight. I'm not convinced that's going to be his mentality because I'm not convinced LeBron looks at this as a backup against the wall situation. I don't think this team's as good as the Chicago team they were facing 4 years ago, and I don't think LeBron at that moment in his career was playing as well as he's playing right now. So I think LeBron is going to stay the distributor LeBron that he was in Game 1 and trust his teammates to hit shots. I'd be surprised if LeBron takes more than 21, 22 shots tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if he has more than 13, 14 assists. I think he's going to have a similar approach as he did in Game 1 with some slight tweaks and with a different starting lineup.
I don't understand how this team comes out knowing full well that the playoffs started, knowing full well what's on the line, not playing aggressively. Kevin Love said yesterday, I would say our intensity, at least until we got hit in the mouth that first quarter, it didn't quite feel like, I guess, the playoffs. You saw it on the calendar. The game was coming up. Game 1 of the playoffs. We talking about LeBron being more aggressive or maybe shooting more? Kevin Love felt that way. Those are the two guys that actually have playoff experience on the team, and it felt like both of them took it for granted.
And, Jenna, you're right. It's unexcusable. Like, this is what they've been supposed to be waiting on. Oh, man, the regular season guys are bored with it. Oh, when are we going to get all our guys back? Well, all your guys are back. It is the playoffs. Everything's on the line. And it's really hard to explain. We can't make excuses for him. This should be the time that Kevin Love and the rest of the Cavs are fully engaged. But we saw a team sleepwalk through the first quarter, giving up 31 points, not to a great offensive team. And the Pacers, like the Pacers are the middle of the pack in the NBA, maybe on the lower level as far as the offensive team is concerned. So no excuse for that.
That I fully agree with. That the idea that they would Game 1, the only reason the Cavs' regular season could have been justified, the only reason, no matter the roster turnover, only winning 50 games when peak LeBron James is on your team is justified is if it's because we're getting ready to ramp up for the playoffs. And for the first playoff experience for a lot of these guys, for the first playoff game, first playoff quarter for this Cavs team as a unit, to get beat 33-14 and just basically they lost the game by 18 points. They lost the first quarter by 19 points. Like, the game was lost right then and there.
Yeah.
That's inexcusable. There is no disagreement. There's no daylight between CC, me, and you on that. We all agree there. Whether or not that means LeBron is going to change his approach tonight, that's yet to be seen. We'll see how nervous he is. If LeBron thinks they're up against the wall, he's going to take 25, 30 shots this
I
game.
wouldn't be shocked if we got on TV tomorrow and they were down 2-0.
Wow.
Okay, that, by the way, there's a lot of daylight there. I would be shell-shocked if they lose tonight.
Okay.
All right, let's switch gears.
We've been
Coming
watching them
up,
all year.
where will Des Bryant end up next season? That's next. First things
Michael
first.
Jordan, he wouldn't have.
Welcome back to First Things First. We're now joined by former Super Bowl champion and friend of the show, Greg Jennings. Greg, haven't seen you in a while.
Long-lost friend of the show.
I know, right?
We just been pen pals the last few months. Good to see you, Greg. How are you?
Hey,
It's a nice suit you got there, preacher,
when
man.
your kids in private school, they get that 2 weeks and some change vacation. So I had to make sure I planned.
But welcome back.
Oh, good to see you, brother.
Nice. Good to have you. All right. We now join our continuing coverage of Des Bryant and his potential landing spot, already in progress. Des has been linked to multiple teams, including your former team, Green Bay. Greg, in a radio interview, he mentioned that he would like to play for the Giants. So many takes, so little time. Des was asked about his priorities in finding a new home. Take a listen.
It's truly not about the money. I'm gonna shoot that straight. I want to win. That's what it's always been about. I want to win. You know, if it was really about the money, I could have made it a big deal. I got more touchdowns than anybody. At the end of the day, that other stat don't matter. It's how many times you can get that ball in the end zone. Last time I checked when it came to this game, you know, and I could have made a big deal. I played out all 5 of my, years. I didn't complain about that. I didn't want to complain. I was too busy trying to get on the football field, and to help win ball games with Dallas, I just want to win.
Greg, there's a lot to break down here, but if you were a Super Bowl contending team coming into the 2018 season, would you want a guy like Dez Bryant on your team?
Absolutely. You could use a guy like Dez Bryant on your team. He provides you with options at receiver. Number one option, I don't see that any longer. And again, he has talent. He can, if he's willing to take the next step. CC, I've listened to you for years talk about this young man, and for a while I was, like you, hoping that we would see that 13, 14 Dez Bryant take the next step and continue to build on what he established. He never did that. He never really took the time to focus on the things that could get him better. Route running. Even his hand, Dez Bryant attacks the ball great, but as far as having great hands, he lacks great hands. So attention to detail, I don't see that. And when you talk about joining a Super Bowl team, you're not going to be, and you're not a number one guy. You have to be locked in on those small things, the details, the fundamentals of playing the receiver position. Because now, if you're not the number one guy, you're a number 2, number 3 guy, you're going to be depended on heavily on a Super Bowl contending team because your number one guy is going to get the coverage leaning to him. So we need you to step up and make plays. And I think Dez Bryant definitely could do that. The Giants, as he mentioned, that's
not a fit for you.
That's nowhere close to being a fit. He needs, and I hesitate.
If he goes there, you're going to have to come here with your Bible. You're going to have to be the wide receiver coach for the Giants.
Look, man, it's too many different personalities in that room.
Right. One thing I'm concerned about is when you talk about later in your career being part of a contender, you talk about being a role player. You're talking about sometimes even taking a lesser role. You're talking about sometimes looking up the next morning and seeing that, wow, I was only targeted 2 times.
Yes.
The reason why was because I didn't have the matchup that other guys are. Is Dez ready for that? I'm not even going to get there talking about is it about money. Any guy that say it's not about money, you know what it's about. Eventually it's going to be about the money. He had no say-so what the money was going to be in Dallas.
The quote there didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, we need about 2 or 3 interpreters to be able to interpret that whole interview. But let's just stay focused on, would he be an asset to a contender? What type of attitude is he going to bring? Is he going to be a role player? And ultimately, what Dez has to be able to understand is when you get to a certain age, the front office and the coaching staff, they're paying you for your ability, but they're also paying you for what kind of guy you're going to be in the locker room. And as Greg said, if you don't think he's a number 1 receiver, you better be concerned about the impact that he's going to have on the young guys that you have playing, either on how much film they study, how hard they're going to work. So Dez is a hard worker, but is he the smartest worker? And for me, after being in the league 9 years, that's the first time I'm going to look at hiring someone to help me with my routes, knowing that that's been my number 1 weakness as far as my career. That right there is very concerning to me, and it would be concerning to me if I had a group of young receivers who I was exposing them to, who they were going to be learning from.
There's 2 quotes now that I can't get over with Dez. One was from the initial interview, the one we had on the show yesterday that he did with NFL Network, that we kind of glossed over, where he said, he was like, listen, he was like, I could have had way better numbers and broken even more records, but I wasn't concerned with that. I wasn't concerned with changing the offense to do what I needed. And I thought of it, and I'm like, that's not accurate. That's just flatly not accurate. The idea that the offense, when Dez was at his peak in years 3, 4, and 5, was somehow holding him back, That's not at all what I was seeing. I actually was seeing the opposite. I was seeing an offense and a quarterback that was giving him every opportunity to get as big a numbers as possible. And then the quotes there where he's saying, listen, if I wanted more, if it was about money, I got more touchdowns than anybody. I guess he means in Cowboys history. I could have, or receivers in Cowboys history. I could have, well, what could you have done? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not picking on him for that because Des Bryant, I'm a professional communicator. He's a professional football player. He's a much better communicator than I am football player. So I'm not picking on him for that part of it. But it's the mentality, which is, that does not strike me as the mentality of someone that's like, yeah, I'll come be the number 2. I'll come be the number 3. And what I thought about when I was asked this question is the team I root for. Because I'm still a fan of a team. I'm a fan of my hometown Kansas City Chiefs. I think hometown Kansas City Chiefs are going to try to go win a Super Bowl this year, certainly compete in the playoffs. If the Chiefs need wide receivers, by the way. You got Tyreek Hill. CC says not a typical number 1 option. They don't have a great big body guy. Like, there's a fit there. They got a little cap space as well. How would I feel if the Chiefs signed Des Bryant? Man, I'd be nervous as hell. We got a rookie. We got a second-year quarterback we're trying to develop.
Exactly.
Like, so if we now, okay, so you don't want to put him on a team with a young quarterback. You don't want to put him on a team with a bad quarterback. You don't want to put him on we're winnowing the options of what makes sense for Dez.
Well, and the one thing that we're all talking about here is Dez as the football player, and Dez as the wide receiver, and Dez catching a ball, and Dez maybe being a mentor to young wide receivers. How much factors into Dez as the person and the person he is in the locker room and the high energy, sometimes the high tempered person he can be on the sideline and when things don't exactly go well? Do you factor that in at all when you think about bringing Dez into your organization?
Absolutely. You have to. There's no way you can overlook the total package. Is he a good football player? Yes. But is he a good enough football player to where you can overlook some of the things that he does on the sideline mid-game? If things, to CeCe's point, aren't going his way, if he's not being targeted 5, 6, 7, 8 times a game, that could be problematic. And you're having young guys that are trying to do things the right way, that you want to have guys, when you get to that year 6, 7, 8, 9 and above, now your role is starting to shift. Are you still a playmaker? Yes. But now you're looked upon as more of a mentor. I need you to set the example, be the example to these younger guys that we're bringing up and developing. You play a huge role in that. Will Des Bryant be willing and capable of doing that? I'm not sure he's able to do that with some of the things that we've seen throughout his career on the sideline.
And you have to do your homework. Greg and I know more information than other people. We'll just tell you, do your homework. Buyer beware. You got to be concerned about the influence that he's ultimately going to have on your locker room and your receiving room, and ultimately the quarterback. At this point in his career, you can't be a negative influence on who's going to be your quarterback. Also, let's not forget, for a number of years, Jerry Jones hired someone to chaperone Dez, to make sure that he was at the meetings. Make sure, so Dez, I don't know where he is as a professional. That's the research that you must do before you bring him into your organization.
Smart stuff. Greg, stick around. Coming up, what's going on with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers? That's next on First Things First. To the NFL yesterday, it was Tom Brady. Now we can add Aaron Rodgers to the list of quarterbacks reportedly frustrated with management. It's an epidemic. In a report by Yahoo Sports, Aaron Rodgers is frustrated after not being consulted on personnel decisions. After this report, Rodgers tweeted out #FakeNewsTuesday, so we know how he feels. He met the media yesterday discussing the offseason.
That's the toughest part about the whole thing, is losing guys over the years, the Jordys, the James Jones, the A.J. Hawks, the John Coons, the Julius Peppers, guys you get close to. And again, those are team decisions. I know my role, and that's to play quarterback the best that I can, and the team is going to try and put the right guys in place, the right coaches in place, the right players in place. So you just have to trust the process.
Greg, are you buying that Aaron Rodgers is okay not having a say in personnel decisions, or not being consulted, or not being spoken to, or not even factoring in at all?
I'm not buying the fact that he's okay not being consulted to, or at least informed.
That it's going to happen.
That it's going to happen. I think that is disturbing, and that is frustrating. Internally, as he mentioned, when you develop relationships with these guys, on and off the field,
When you say these guys?
His receivers, his linemen, his quarterback coach.
Okay.
Guys who you now sit down with every single day and you spend the majority of your time with, and you find out, wow, we're moving on from them. And you're a major piece, the most important piece to that puzzle. It can be frustrating. You go to work the next day feeling some type of way. I don't care who you are. Now, a lot of people in our media world say, well, you can't take things personal. Well, yes, you can. You can. When you've invested your life, your sweat, your tears, your blood, and you've put your body in the way to where you've risked so much to be successful for these guys, with these guys, yes, I want to be able to know, not so much make decisions or have a say in the decisions, but I want to be in the know. Just allow me that much to where I'm at least informed. So when I do have a camera in my face or when I do have a microphone put up to me, I can speak educatedly and knowing, yes, we were in support of this, or I was aware, but to be blindsided, that's like a slap in the face. And with him coming up with this contract situation, it'll be interesting because this new era player, I'm not just staying just because anymore.
Right. You and I are opposite ends of the spectrum. Now, I was very, very fortunate in my career with the Vikings that the Vikings did inform me of a lot of players. They did call me about a number of players because the relationship I had with the general manager, it wasn't to get my approval, but it was he knew that the intel I knew around the league was precious. He knew that I ran my own training facility, so I trained with a lot of guys. He knew that I'd been on another team, so I had existing relationships. And what he would do was probe me for information to help him do his job. One time he called me. I was in South Carolina, Kiowa, playing golf, and he said, man, we're looking for a backup quarterback. And he said, what do you think about Randall Cunningham? I said, well, unless you're going to say someone that's starting on the team, like, we need to get him signed right now. And it was like, really? Like, you like Randall? Like I said, he said, he didn't play last year. I said, I don't care. Those other guys can't play quarterback. I don't care what Randall was doing. He always stayed in shape. I knew he'd be great for the locker room. I said, I don't care. He can come to the Vikings right now and be able to help the team. But it wasn't personal. For him, the general manager was young. He was transitioning from the business side to the football side, and he knew the intel that I knew about the league at that point was valuable. But he never came to me when they were going to cut players, when they were going to release players, because that's not what I signed up for. In my contract, it doesn't say, oh, at the end of your 7th year, we're going to start having you involved in personnel. I believe that the front office is more equipped. They're less emotional. And, yes, there's some drawbacks to the job. And that's one day, one of your friends is in the locker room, his locker is going to be empty. Someone else is going to be wearing his jersey. That's part of playing in professional sports. But I've only seen a rare few who can actually understand what personnel, what it means, not be emotional, and be separate. Separate the business of it and the football of it. So for me, I don't care about none of the players. I ain't going to inform none of them. I ain't going to let them know as a courtesy. I could care less how they feel.
My question is this. Even if you believe that there is no player in the league that should have a say in who's cut, who's not cut, who's extended, who's not extended, fine. But what is the downside to a heads up? What is even if you think it shouldn't have to happen?
It shouldn't have to happen.
Okay, but what's the downside?
Because it's not a part emotionally. I don't want you to be attached to the information I give you. And I'm going to be making decisions in the future that I'm not going to give you a heads up on. All right? So, no, I'm not going to cross the line. I'm not going to make the waters muddy. I run the team, or as a department, we run the team. Your job is to play on the team. And somehow you figure the playing and dabbling in personnel like they should mix. I don't know what information you have that would make it think that, why would it be better for Aaron Rodgers to have this information?
But as a mentor, as an advisor, as a parent, there are certain decisions you make to where you are going to either inform beforehand so that a decision can be made.
There's also a lot of decisions I make on my kids' behalf that they don't know.
Exactly.
Because I can see the future.
But there's a mixture of both. That's my point. You tend to do both. And there's to Nick's point, there's no problem with, Aaron has been proven to be able to handle a lot of different things throughout his career. Family, friends, guys being released, cut, whatever the case may be, injury. He's been proven to be able to take on a lot of different things, but to just completely X him out, I get it. It's business. It's
never have him involved. If you never get him involved, you never have to worry about Xing him out.
You're correct in that, but now you have to deal with a guy who's your guy.
Okay, you know
who
something
can be disgruntled, who can leave,
Let
who
me
can
tell
walk
you
out the
something.
door.
No, he can't.
Well,
no, he can't.
That part we
Not
agree.
right now.
He can't never do
but
that.
But it's 4 years. It'd be the earliest he could actually leave is 4 years.
Oh, we can franchise him.
No. That's with the franchise. He has 2 years left on his contract.
And he's
then
33 now.
Right. No. I don't think him leaving is a tangible threat. Not in the NFL. NBA is different, obviously, because of the franchise tag, because he's never been franchise tagged. But the heads up on the quarterback's coach, I just don't see what the downside to it is. And the other part of this that I think we talk a lot about how the Packers do business a certain way.
The negative is if Aaron wants to keep the guy and you want to fire him.
I guess my thing is that what if you've already made the decision? Aaron, we want to let you know before the news comes out. We've decided to let this guy go.
Then I agree with you at this point. What's the point? What's the point?
So now everything, when Jordy Nelson's getting ready to get cut, I got to call Aaron first. Where's Aaron? Is Aaron out the country? Where's Aaron? I wonder how Aaron's going to feel about this. I'm getting ready to get off of Greg Jennings. Aaron likes Greg Jennings. You're going to keep your friends around.
Well, let me ask you a question real quick, though, because you alluded to something earlier, which is you said as we were going to break, the year after you broke the NFL record for catches, they fired the wide receivers coach?
Yes.
Okay. Did they let you know? No. And what was your feeling when you heard about it?
There was nothing I could do. It wasn't my job. My job is to catch touchdowns, get first downs, help the guys in the locker room, and take care of my family. Nowhere in that did it say, hey, man, any of these decisions you don't like, I want you to come upstairs and voice your opinion.
CC, I agree with you. It wasn't your job, but it impacted you. At some level, it disturbed you.
Yeah, it impacted me. The next year I came back and did 122 and 17.
Man, I know
that's the truth.
You're going to ball regardless, but because,
it's not my position.
You know you have a job to do.
It's not my position.
No, it may not be your position, but would you have liked to know?
It didn't care. It didn't, like, I know what I'm supposed to do. I don't get distracted by things that are outside of my realm. All right? Do your job. My job was to catch touchdowns, get first downs, help mentor the people, and make the money that I was supposed to make. All that other stuff has nothing to do with my job. And you guys would think that even with this information, that Aaron Rodgers might be better at it than other people. No, if Tom Brady's not getting information, Aaron Rodgers don't need no information.
The other aspect of this that I was going to get to earlier that I don't think we can disregard is we've talked about how the Packers, and now they have new GM, so we'll see how they do it. But for the bulk of Aaron's career, they sit out free agency, right? They don't always spend to the cap. They don't certainly go after the marquee free agents. I don't know how that would sit with me if I'm the best quarterback in the league or one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But he's dealt with that quietly without ever complaining. I've never heard him complain about it. Oh, we should have gone after this guy. That's why I would have felt that the quarterback's coach thing would have been just a little salt in a wound that was unnecessary.
Players just get used up and down. I mean, if a free agent's coming in, I'm going to call CC so he can talk to this guy, get him to come in. But if we about to let somebody go, that's CC's running part, just let him go.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. That is Nick Wright. And in an unprecedented event, my partner Nick Wright has forgotten his writing utensil.
Forgot my matching Sharpie.
In this moment.
Well, I didn't forget it. I left it in the Jenna.
It is forgotten.
I was at 162 consecutive shows. Yeah. Having brought it.
Yeah.
It will be brought out to me shortly.
Guess what?
You are on 3 straight shows, and it took 4 Amazon orders and 7 staff members for you to be able to get pens out here.
But listen, much like LeBron James, you are only as good as the last experience you had with the pen situation.
Appreciate that. See?
Look at that.
See, you're going to hold it hostage for me?
Yes.
I'm going to get, I don't like change.
No,
this is going to make me very
You don't have anything to say today. LeBron didn't do anything today. You don't need a pen. He needs pen nor paper.
Thank you, sir.
You are in a good mood today, and we are happy for you.
America's in a good mood. Good night of sports
Well, I know
last
that
night.
you definitely are. Let's tell America why. Someone remind me the next time I'm hanging out with LeBron James not to accuse him of not being aggressive enough, because his head coach Ty Lue did that after the Cavs lost Game 1 to the Pacers. And last night in Game 2, well, let's see. LeBron scored the first Cavs 16 points in 6 minutes. He finished with 46. But the Cavs only barely won because he unfortunately has to play with 4 other players on the court. This series is now tied at 1 game apiece. LeBron was outstanding. CeCe, let's talk about LeBron James a little bit last night. He knew that he had to come out and play a little bit more aggressive, whether he was following social media or not. It was out there that they came out a little lackadaisical in Game 1. He wasn't going to rely on his teammates for anything. He said, don't worry, guys, I got this. And he got it.
I've seen this on other occasions, and not to overreact, but LeBron he's a basketball god with the small G, and you only see these type of performance not that often, where you know that this guy is bigger than basketball. We know that what he's got to do, Nick. There's no one who knows LeBron and his history better than him. You thought that he might come out and just be a little passive, getting guys into the flow. But LeBron knew what was at stake. Like, LeBron knows that he can't depend on this team to score the basketball. So he's got to take on that selfish mentality, which I thought that he would. He was brilliant. To be able to score 20 points in the first quarter, totally against what his natural instincts are to come out. And I've been watching this for 15 years. And even in high school, he played the same way. In high school and in the pros, his average has been the same, 28, 8.
And a 7.
That's what he's done.
Remarkable.
He's done the same thing. And it's amazing how his numbers, now this advanced, match what he did earlier in his career, but also match what he did in high school. He's an unselfish player. He's a complete player. But, man, can he be one of the best scorers ever when he wants to? Yeah, that's what he showed last night. And his team needed it. He was brilliant. And I love the fact that he went back to shooting his jump shot. My indicator going into the game was, how good will LeBron be? Let's check how many shots does he make outside the paint. And I think right early, he showed us that, man, he was going to shoot his jump shot. He was going to shoot the 3. He played great defense. And that right there, to me, that's the reason why LeBron James is a special player. That's the reason why you only see these types of players every so often in your life. That performance was an epic performance.
All right, so CeCe's right that I was not certain if he was going to come out aggressive like that. I think I said on the air yesterday, if he wants to score 40, he can. I'm not sure he's going to want to. He clearly wanted to. He had the look on his face, and this is, by the way, maybe not great for the Cavs as a whole. He had the look on his face that was similar to the biggest game of his career, Game 6 in Boston, Year 2 in Miami, facing elimination. That was his 45-15-5 game that many people believe is the best game of his career up to that point, maybe still the best game of his career. And he nearly had identical numbers. He had 46-12-5 last night. And this is what I know. What I know is last night, it took a game longer than we thought, but last night was the season premiere of the 13th season of the greatest show on television, the LeBron James playoff show, and we have been welcome to it as sports fans, as everyone, every spring into the early summer for over a decade. Now, for the Cavs, that he had to go do that and that it wasn't an easy win, that's an indictment on them as a whole. But what we have seen from LeBron, he went 40-10-5. He went more in most categories, but 40-10-5. That's the 10th time he's done that in his playoff career. No other player has more than 4 of those instances. He was up himself 16-1 to start this basketball game. It should have been over there. It wasn't. The Pacers never gave up, and his teammates were not seemingly inspired by his play because they were just slightly better than they were the first game of this series. But they got a critical win, a win that had they lost, given how he played, it's a totally different discussion this morning.
Listen, what LeBron James did yesterday was was outstanding. He knew what he had to do, and he came out and he did it. When you can have something in your head, when you can visualize it and then come out and actually stay in the zone and play the way you're playing, that focus, because he knew and you could see it on his face. You could see it when the play would stop, how focused he was. But what you said was interesting. It wasn't great for the Cavs as a whole, and I wonder if it's because when he is playing like that, it takes the rest of the team out of their rhythm. It takes the rest of the team out of that comfort zone where shots are landing, where it gives them a chance to warm up a little bit and try making a couple shots, and they start relying on LeBron James. Oh, we'll just give it to LeBron. It'll be easier with LeBron doing it. Is there any truth to that?
There is some truth to it, but the fact of the matter is if they played better, he wouldn't have to do that. If they made more shots, and even LeBron, even after the fast start, the second quarter and the third quarter, he deferred to them again. And that's what let the Pacers get back into the game. So, yeah, initially it'd be like, wow, man, LeBron, we're sitting around watching LeBron. But J.R. Smith is a guy that LeBron, he could sense what was going on. Kevin Love, like I give Kevin, he tries his best. But Kevin Love is, to me, he's not the athletic Kevin Love that we thought we were getting from the Timberwolves. So for me, I'm always a little disappointed in Kevin Love. Because is he a true number two? No. So LeBron, it looks like LeBron in a couple halves.
Yeah.
So it becomes difficult. But LeBron did what he had to do. Given this team is offensively challenged.
Yeah.
All right? Now, I love the lineup change because the lineup change allowed LeBron also that if his jump shot wasn't going, because they spread the court with Kyle and JR, that he could get to the hole. So I did like that from the beginning.
And it's odd because I agree. JR was, I think, his third best teammate yesterday after Korver. And you look at the box score, JR had 5 points. But JR was playing excellent defense. He had a steal late.
He was fully
enormous.
engaged.
He was fully engaged except for on what could have been the game-tying three when he and Korver just leave Victor Oladipo wide open. LeBron was apoplectic about that after the game. But here's what we know. LeBron's the only guy in the league that going into a game like last night, he's going to show up, whether it's through distributing, scoring, or both. Last night it was primarily scoring, and give his team every chance to win. Every other great player, there's always the chance. The guy who's going to run away with MVP this year, James Harden, he had a 2 for 18 night last night. LeBron's never had a night like that in his playoff career. Every other player, there's a chance they're just not going to have it when their team needs them to have it. That doesn't exist for LeBron. And when you look at
There's so many other things he can do. Because of his ability to rebound, his ability to be able to run the offense, those things. Last night, amazing defense on Oladipo. The time he played them, I'm going to get Dusty to run the number, the amount of minutes that he spent chasing him around. That was LeBron James of 10 years ago.
Was that an adjustment from game one?
Yeah.
They had to, absolutely.
And that in and of itself is impressive.
Yes, but they had to. They had to pull out all the stops. This was, to me, like the finals.
Yes.
The lineup change,
like it.
LeBron playing defense, JR picking up. When they came out in the third quarter of the game, they picked up full court press. LeBron was in the backcourt pressing to start the second half. So, yes, they had the emphasis on winning this game. This was critical for their season.
And people will remember the one play Oladipo blew by LeBron. LeBron almost got the chase down block, and he laid it in late in the fourth quarter. But aside from that, when LeBron was guarding Oladipo, I don't have the one-on-one numbers either. I don't think Spectrum's run them yet. But when LeBron was guarding Oladipo one-on-one, he shut him down. They had to run through Darren Collison. They had to run through other members of their offense. But this is also why, on a bigger picture standpoint, I get so aggravated on the one historical knock on LeBron, the finals record. Because if he drags, and it will be dragging, this team to the NBA Finals, that is a wild accomplishment. But if and when he does that, they are going to be heavy underdogs, facing either a 65-win Houston team or a 4 Hall of Famer Golden State team. And they will, I don't want to say assuredly, but overwhelmingly likely lose. And the idea that you would then look at the totality of this year and say, another finals loss, when you look at these guys, Rodney Hood is not ready for these moments. Jordan Clarkson is not ready for these moments. Maybe by the Eastern Conference Finals they will be. But how many times did we see Hood last night just get the ball taken from him? Just give it to me. I'd like that. Thank you. Jordan Clarkson taking bad mid-range shots. Like, look, they needed every last bit of LeBron's 46 points to win this basketball game.
You wonder what this team would look like if they had a true number 2 and they didn't have to make Kevin Love their number 2. The way LeBron had in Miami with Bosh and Dwayne Wade.
Yeah. Oh, that's what they had.
He had in Cleveland with Kyrie Irving. He doesn't have a number 2
Like
right
I told
now.
him from the beginning of the season, when they traded him, they will regret that trade.
Yeah.
Because right now, you can see why LeBron has to work like that.
And Jenna, if you just quickly, if you remember the beginning of the year, you wanted Kevin, like, hey, you wanted Kevin Love to be the number 2, and we pushed back a little bit, saying for them to be their best, Isaiah Thomas has to be the number 2.
And they thought he could have been.
They thought he could have been.
Right.
And you see now in these playoff games, if you don't have a guy who can get his own shot off the dribble, which Kyrie's as good as anyone in the league at, then it all falls on LeBron. Last night, that was enough.
LeBron James scoring almost half the team's points. That series is all tied up at 1 apiece. Coming up, further evidence now that Tom Brady is upset with the Patriots. Is that true? Next on First Things First. New topic, this one focused on the future of the best quarterback in football. And we'll get to Josh McCown in a second, but let us first chat Tom Brady. Reports were yesterday that Brady had yet to commit to playing in 2018, something we saw hints of in the last episode of Tom versus Time on Facebook. However, other reports say that all Tom Brady wants now is a new contract. Brady is due an average of $14 million for the final 2 years of his deal. So, CeCe, let's start with you. Should Bill Belichick and the Pats do whatever it takes to make Tom Brady happy at this point?
Okay, you know how I am about all those reports and everything, okay? I've been covering the league, been in the league for a long time to realize that more than half of those reports aren't true. But if Tom Brady does want a new contract, that's exactly what they should do. Now, I wouldn't be surprised that he wants more money, but I would be surprised that's the reason why he's not there this offseason. I don't believe that they run together. All right? I didn't think he was going to be there this offseason. To me, it's offseason. It's not that important. They're not installing anything. If they had a new offensive coordinator, if Josh McDaniels had taken the Colts job, they had a new offensive coordinator, and Tom Brady wasn't there, I would have some concern. I wouldn't be in a panic because it's still Tom Brady's offense. But now with what's going on, he wants a new contract, all these rumors. You know, to me, I'm just very, very careful because when you have a dynasty like New England's had, at the end, people are starting to pick it apart, saying how they can tear apart this dynasty. How can they tear apart Tom Brady's legacy? Now, Tom Brady's been underpaid for a long, long time. And I know that every person that I know from a high-level achiever, money is not always the answer, but money is always a part of a result of what you do. And to have people like Kirk Cousins and others, Jimmy Garoppolo, guys making twice as much as you, I don't know if that sits all that well with Tom, because he's human. He's human, and to see these types of numbers, it wouldn't surprise me at all that he would say, man, I've been underpaid for a long, long time, and they ain't doing me no favors with that money. They ain't going out getting weapons and everything. So that part, he's human. So that part, I would say, okay, that wouldn't surprise me. But I don't believe the contract and what he's doing this offseason have anything to do with each other.
We should just let people know. He's making $14 million a year. Give me an idea of what other quarterbacks that are not Tom Brady.
$14 million would be a slight pay cut for Ryan Tannehill and Tyrod Taylor.
There you go.
$14 million is in line with what Andy Dalton is making.
There you go.
And when you say double, that's not euphemistically. That's exactly. $14 million is half of what Kirk Cousins is getting. It is just more than half of what Jimmy Garoppolo is getting. Jimmy Garoppolo, who, by the way, of course, famously shares an agent with Tom Brady. So I don't know how much Don Yee chirping in his ear on this, but he's obviously, Tom Brady, very aware of what other guys are making. And also, we should note, Tom Brady recently signed a contract extension. So I'd say, oh, well, he was fine with his pay. It was March of 2016. What's Tom Brady done since then? Oh, he's won a Super Bowl, been to another Super Bowl, and been a league MVP. Like, that's what he's done since then. So he's outperformed the contract. So I just think the question is, should you do whatever it takes to make Tom Brady happy? Yes. Like, of course you can. And I understand why, typically with teams, they don't like to set the precedent. We're going to rip up a contract 2 years early. What's that going to say to other guys on the team? What's the trickle-down effect? When it's Tom Brady, that is so much less of a concern.
Yeah, I've been in those locker rooms. I tell those guys what to think. Hey, man, you see that what he got? Yeah, absolutely. The guy deserves it. Shut your mouth. Watch your own money. All right? If there's one guy in the NFL that deserves more money, it's Tom Brady.
Right, that exactly. Like, I don't think if you all of a sudden are ripping up, like, if they had, I know Nate Solder's gone now, but I'm just trying to pick a good player on the team that's not Gronk or Brady, and say, you know what, Nate, with 2 years left, we're going to give you a pay raise. You've been a great left tackle for us. Then all of a sudden, you got a guy like Dante Hightower might come and say, hey, I'm as good as, nobody on that team thinks they're as good as Brady. Nobody on that team is as respected as Brady, has been there as long as Brady, and they got the money to do it. They got $14 million under the cap, and Cece's point is a critical one. When Tom Brady has taken these below market value deals, the implicit agreement has been, I am doing that not to enrich Robert Kraft. I'm doing that so you can go out and get me more weapons.
In the last 7 years, last 10 years, Tom Brady has lost his two favorite targets. One being Randy Moss, over money. The other one being Wes Welker, over money. Now, I'm not even going to talk about Amendola, what he's done in the playoffs. He went to Miami for money. Gronk is not participating now and thinking about retirement, not because he's tired of football, for money. So all these money situations, and Tom Brady has given them the best hometown discount in the history of sports. It begins to rub on you the wrong way.
But this is what we've come to know about the Patriots. They underpay their players, and what do you get for being underpaid? You get to be there at the very end, most likely holding up a trophy. It has seemingly worked for this franchise. It's the way Bob Kraft has sort of laid everything out, and it started with the quarterback. My question is, what happened between, a couple months ago when Tom Brady was on top of the world, he wanted to play another couple years, he was on his way to league MVP, he was on his way to the Super Bowl, and then suddenly these existential questions in this documentary about family and who I am and what I'm doing, how much longer I want to play, and then suddenly, oh, now I want a new contract, and now I'm not going to show up to practices, whether he was going to or not. And I just wonder how much of that has to do with, you're hearing a lot of barking from players who have left about Bill Belichick, which we haven't really heard in the last couple of years, plus the Malcolm Butler stuff. There's a lot that happened in the last 2 months since the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the Belichick stuff is real. The Belichick stuff has always been there. Now with the media coverage and where the Patriots are. People love to pick at the Patriots. People love to try to get information on the Patriots, trying to pick apart the dynasty or trying to make what they've done, trying to take some shine off of what they've done. But Tom Brady has sacrificed a lot. And this is what I do know. Even if Tom Brady wasn't thinking about the money, when you have an agent that's negotiated a contract for twice the amount, him talking to you in your ear, that can affect you. Your wife, because I know she don't understand. There ain't no way she working for half the amount the other models are working for. No, that's real.
Yeah.
While people sitting around laughing, that's real. And I know she don't understand. So I'm sure there are other people in Tom's ear, and it makes the decisions very, very difficult.
All right, we'll talk about this a lot more over the course of the show this morning. But coming up is a new star being born in the NBA playoffs. That's next on First Things First. Back here at First Things First, it's time for stories to start your morning. Le'Veon Bell was a no-show with the Steelers' offseason workouts this week, so it's just like last year. Bell remains unsigned after Pittsburgh applied the franchise tag. Just like last year. The Steelers and Bell have until July 16th to work out a long-term deal. CC, any cause for concern here?
No, just like last year.
Well done.
Not concerned, just like last year. This is the story I least like talking about in the offseason. Because I'm tired of talking about it. You know he's not going to show up. Let him continue to work on the contract. L. Bell, he'll update us within the next week or so on the latest development.
I do like Coach Mangini's point, which is how frustrated he would always be as a coach. When something like this, they were working on something, reportedly they were getting closer, and then the team's like, we got to put it on hold because the draft's coming up. And Coach Mangini's point was,
why?
You got 24 hours in a day. Like, you can't spend 20 minutes a day on the Le'Veon Bell situation. He's not obviously going to show up to any of these things unless he gets a deal. And if he gets a deal, he'll show up to training camp. And if he doesn't get a deal, he'll show up to week 1. It's going to be.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to take the risk of getting hurt.
Right.
Moving on to hoops, Joel Embiid has yet to make his playoff debut. Embiid has been listed as doubtful for Game 3 in Miami tonight with the series tied 1-1. We weren't sure, but now we know it is officially doubtful. Philly star has voiced frustration, saying he is, quote, sick of being babied. Nick, do the Sixers need Embiid to win Game 3 in Miami?
They absolutely can win without him. But with him, they would be, to me, a big-time road favorite. And now, instead, I would go into the game looking at them as a slight underdog. I know Ben Simmons has been spectacular all year and was great in Game 1 of these playoffs and not bad in Game 2. But they are they're a team very reliant on three-point shooting. And we know those non-stars on the road, those rims get a little bit tighter. Those shots become tougher to make, even if it's not the most aggressive road crowd in the Miami fans.
Yeah, let's not forget, this team won 17 games in a row?
Yes.
17 games in a row. Now they've lost one game. Now we're in an all-out panic. I still think that they're better than Miami. It would be nice to have Embiid in the lineup going against Whiteside. They're not going to have him, so I don't believe that they need him to win tonight in Miami.
And evidently, listen, Vegas disagrees with me. Sixers, a 2-point favorite tonight.
Yep, I kind of saw that.
Oh, okay. Well, could have given me a heads up.
All right,
I thought it was Miami by a point and a half.
Might be playing a little parlay tonight.
Oh, parlays. Let's get it.
I'll play parlay. There are 82 games in the NBA regular season, 82 games for your starting lineup to take the court, unless you're the Cavs. Then there are 30 different lineup changes for you to have to deal with. The Cavs made another one last night, inserted Kyle Korver and J.R. Smith into the starting lineup for Game 2, and it resulted in a Cavs win to even the series. Nick, what do you think of the move by Ty Lue, and did it have anything to do with the starting lineup?
Oh, well, I mean, listen, LeBron is the story of the game, but the second best player for the Cavs was Kyle Korver, and despite only scoring 5 points, the third best player was J.R. Smith. And most notably, Rodney Hood does not seem ready. He was taken out of the starting lineup. Jeff Green went from starter to getting, I think, 12 total minutes, and once again, not looking ready. So, yes, I think this is a lineup that's going to sacrifice defensively, but that is their best lineup to open up driving lanes for LeBron and to get the best shooters on the court.
It also leads to them being dominated in the paint. Pacers had 43 points in the paint. A better team would have beaten the Cavs. So, yes, you spread the court. You make it better on the offensive end. JR did play better defense, so he did give them a boost there. But this lineup, man, it's highly questionable. That's why I think the Cavs continue to struggle. LeBron's going to have to get 40 a game with this lineup.
All right, finally, the Rockets rolled the T-Wolves 102-82 last night. They take a 2-0 lead. Chris Paul bounced back from a very shaky Game 1 to drop 27 points and 8 assists in Game 2. Gerald Green came off the bench to add 21 points. Don't worry about what James Harden did. It wasn't much. Nick, is there any slowing down the Rockets at this point?
I mean, not till the Western Conference Finals at the earliest. And I want to talk about Chris Paul and James Harden for a moment, because James Harden was amazing in Game 1 and Chris Paul was not so good. Last night, Chris Paul was spectacular, and James Harden had one of the worst games of his career. 2 of 18 from the field. It was John Starks Game 7-esque for our Knicks fans watching. Here's the thing. When these two guys came together, the discussion was so much around how are they going to coexist that an under-discussed point was what it gives the Rockets when just one of them's on the court. What you now have in Houston is the ability to have a triple-plus point guard play for 48 minutes a game. Now, when they're both on the court, that's a bonus. But when Harden last night, and I understand it's because of the fourth quarter, they're blowing him out, but he only plays 30 minutes. Chris Paul only plays 30 minutes. But when the game's in question, one of them is on the court at all times. And now if you're Minnesota, you've had one game where Harden was the only guy that showed up, and you still lost. Another game where Harden had his worst game of the season, and you still lost. They still haven't played the Rockets firing on all cylinders, and they're down 0-2.
The only team, Jenna, you and I had this conversation earlier this morning. Is there another team that could have their best player go 2 for 18 and they win in the fashion for which they won? And you look at the Eastern Conference, we know that not to be true. No. And when we look in the West, you say, well, maybe Steph, maybe KD. No, even Golden State wouldn't be able to been able to endure a performance by their superstar like Harden went through last night. So that right there puts Houston in a special category, but their ability to play defense. When we see teams that are this efficient offensively, typically, besides Golden State in the history of basketball, they're not in the top 5 defensively. That's where Houston is now. So now, when they don't have one of their superstars making shots, they have the ability to be able to play great defense, which gives them the ability to win more games. That's how you're able to win 65 games in the NBA, and that's what I believe makes this Houston team more special. Harden last night, he talked about his shot will be back, but his ability to be able to switch, because defensively they were switching 1 through 5. But his ability to be able to play the post players and his improved defense, that's what his teammates talked about after the game. Not his shots, not how many shots he took. They talked about his ability to be able to concentrate on the defensive end and how much improved he is on that end.
And on the flip side of things, the story for Minnesota after Game 1 was you need more out of Karl Anthony Towns. You can't get outplayed by Clint Capella. That's the one matchup Minnesota going into the series had a clear advantage. And his 5 points on 9 shots. Jimmy Butler took 6 shots. Minnesota, the way they're distributing their shots, when Wiggins takes as many shots as Towns and Butler combined, you got a problem. And you saw it last night where they get blown out in a game where Harden's terrible.
All right, let's move on to the other big game last night. Anytime you can say, hey, I'm better than Michael Jordan at something basketball-related, that's impressive.
Who can say that?
Donovan Mitchell, the Utah rookie, can now say that, CC. Thunder Jazz Game 2. Mitchell went bananas again, had 28. He's now got 55 points in his first 2 playoff games. That's more than Michael Jordan. That's more than any rookie guard ever in his first 2 playoff games. That and the fact that the Thunder Big Three went 0 for 14 in the fourth quarter, that helped the Jazz win. That series now tied at 1 game apiece. Nick, how impressive has Donovan Mitchell been?
Listen, that stat there's a real thing now. Guards as rookies in the playoffs, you do not see this level of scoring. It's no surprise that the guy who held the record is the guy widely considered to be the greatest basketball player ever. It's no surprise that no rookie guard has approached that record recently. And to see this guy do this, and not a rookie because he played 6 years in Europe, not a Tim Duncan rookie who played 4 years in college, not even a Ben Simmons rookie who had the redshirt year. Nah, I was in high school 2 years ago, played 2 years at Louisville, and now I'm going to go out and bust people in their head. Like, this guy is, as a scoring force, the only recent player I can compare him to stylistically is Dwayne Wade. Young Dwayne Wade. I am more athletic than you, I am fearless, and I am getting to the rim. And if you stop me from getting to the rim, I am not afraid to beat you with my mid-range.
Yeah. Mitchell, a lot better shooter than Dwayne Wade will ever be. I mean, he made more three-pointers than any rookie in NBA history. As far as the Jordan numbers, too, you're comparing when the defense was totally different, too. And all the rookies at that time, they were grown men. They were 3-4 years in the league. So Michael Jordan, it was impressive. Mitchell's doing it in an era where rookies are having more success. Tatum in Game 1, the Celtics. Jaylen Brown, Game number 2. Simmons in Game number 1 for Philadelphia. And we've seen Mitchell in 2 games. So in this new NBA, where it's wider open as far as the pace and the court is more wide open, and you can't do the things defensively, you should get used to seeing more rookies do what Mitchell did. And we've seen that throughout the playoffs. It's easier to score the basketball, and his ability not to be able to shoot the deep three and get to the hole, that's what makes him so dangerous at this point, because you can't guard him out by the three-point line because he can get by you, and he's so explosive at the hole.
And the Thunder tried. They moved rests on him. They switched guys around to try to stop him, and they doubled. They just couldn't.
They had no answer. Listen, Donovan Mitchell, and I understand the league's changed. I understand it's less physical. I understand it's more wide open. But the league didn't draft. Hold on. See, though. The league didn't.
I mean, Jaylen Brown went for 30.
Well, he's second-year player, though. So there's a bit of a difference. Like But here's the thing, though. Even if we want to say the league has changed drastically from when Jordan was there, hasn't changed drastically from 2 years ago, or it's changed somewhat from 5 years ago, and no rookies come close to this mark. Like, I have never, one of the reasons I was skeptical of the Celtics early in the year, when we were talking a ton about Jason Tatum, is I remember saying on the show, you remind me the last rookie to make a major impact on a quality playoff team? Well, right now we do have 3 of them doing it. Jason Tatum, the guys you mentioned, Jason Tatum, Ben Simmons, and Donovan Mitchell. But this level of scoring he was on the court last night with probably three future Hall of Famers, Russ, Paul George, and Carmelo. I don't know if Paul George will get there. And he was the best player last night. Like, I want to give, I know people are going to focus, and I know we're going to talk about what the hell happened to the Thunder in the fourth quarter. I want to give this young man his credit because he was extraordinary, and they stole a game. And now all of a sudden, they have home court going into Game 3.
I think the most impressive thing, he went into the game, he was questionable. Had
a
foot contusion.
Foot, yeah.
Yes, got his foot stepped on in game number 1, and the ability to be mentally tough. That's the thing that the staff there in Utah and the other players have said about him. He has a veteran mentality.
What do you think about this series?
Well, I
mean, have you changed based on what you saw last night from Donovan Mitchell?
Oh, I think Utah's going to beat him.
Yeah, I mean, I had Utah going into the series to win it. I think Utah's a better team. Utah, since Rudy Gobert got back in the lineup, has been one of the 5 best teams in basketball. I think it's a tough matchup for him. Now, I didn't see OKC going through that drought in the fourth quarter. Cece, this was
the 0 for 14 drought from the Big Three.
The Big Three, Melo, Paul George, Russ, 0 for 14 in the fourth quarter. Cece, last night was the first time I can remember watching Russ in a close game in the fourth quarter and thinking, why aren't you shooting? Like, be more aggressive. Like, he had lost, I don't know if it's confidence or what it was, but he had lost.
I thought I was watching the preseason. Like, this was one of the first times that all 3 of these players had played together. And you would think, no, this is the postseason. They looked like they did not have any type of chemistry. They had no go-to play. There was no one spot on the court that any one of these players wanted to get to be able to get their shot. Like, these guys have closed out games for franchises. Russ has done it. Paul George has done it. And Melo has done it. They looked disjointed last night.
And it came at such an odd time. Utah was up 67-58, and OKC goes on a 19-0 run. The moment that run ended, I believe on a Donovan Mitchell basket, the rest of the game, Russ, Paul George, Melo, combined to go 0 for 16 with 2 points. Like, they had taken back control of the game. They had a 10-point lead. And from that moment forward, they get outscored 35-18. Your 3 best players don't score. Steven Adams fouling out was a huge problem for them. Like, that's a game that the Thunder could have and did take control of, and they gave it right back to Utah.
Russ said after the game, we have to be more aggressive. Is it about being aggressive, or is it about just stepping up and just taking more shots and taking more shots? Or
the NBA is a make or miss league. You got to make shots in critical time. All right? They got the shots they wanted. They weren't making shots. They were being aggressive, but Utah also is a very good defensive team because on the perimeter, they can hug you on the three-point line because they have a rim protector in the back. One of the few teams that can do that.
Right. The Rudy Gobert factor was in full effect yesterday. People were afraid to go challenge him, and so that's why they were shooting so many threes. Those big 3 were 1 for 11 from 3 over the final 13 minutes. Here's a prediction, though. I'm setting the over-under at Russell Westbrook shots in the next game at 27.5. If they're going to lose, they're not going to lose another. Russ is not going to go down not shooting. If they're going to go down, he's going to go down shooting.
All right, we'll take a break there. Coming up, did the Dallas Cowboys make a big mistake cutting Dez Bryant? Next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, Super Bowl champ Greg Jennings is here. Hi, Greg.
Good to see you, Greg.
Good to be seen.
How is it going?
It's going great. A nice rainy morning this morning.
Yeah, that's been our spring
New
so
York
far.
was nice yesterday, though. It was nice yesterday afternoon.
Rain.
That's not a
Nice.
complaint. I'm in Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a good point.
Let me
Very
clarify
good.
that.
It's a good point.
Y'all act like y'all work outside.
More fallout now, Greg Jennings, from the Cowboys releasing Dez Bryant. From 2012 to 2014, Dez had nearly 4,000 receiving yards. The next 3 years, he had just over 2,000, cut in half if you're doing math. Still, Dez didn't blame his poor play for the reason he was cut. Instead, he blamed, quote, Garrett's guys, in a reference to the team's head coach, Jason Garrett. Garrett himself, though, said the decision to cut number 88 was a tough one.
It's a challenging situation. A lot of different factors go into these kinds of decisions. And again, the guidepost for all of us is what's in the best interest of the Dallas Cowboys. And that's why we made this decision. We wish Dez nothing but the best going forward. He's a special guy. I love him. I will always love him. And the impact that he made on this franchise has been significant.
Greg, we all know that Dez has had diminished production over the last few years, but how hard will it be for the Cowboys to now replace what it was he did give them?
Over his career, it would be a challenge. Over the last 4 seasons, as you alluded to, that won't be hard for them to replace. Dez Bryant has done some great things for the Cowboy organization. I think what Jason Garrett, what we heard, was his true sentiments. When you're a coach, you're developing relationships with these players, and you're not really, we know Jason Garrett isn't making the decisions to sign and release guys. That's not his deal, but he has relationships with these young men. He understands the developmental process. He's been there with Dez Bryant. But to be able to replace that production, it's going to be a collective effort. And, I mean, they were going to get a receiver this year, maybe 2. Dez was hindering the growth of Dak Prescott. And at the end of the day, when you're looking at the Dallas Cowboys, they don't need a whole bunch. But what they did need to do was remove a couple pieces and now insert some more. And Dez just, at this point in his career, he wasn't getting it done, bottom line.
I think that last point you made about Dak is the key one. How do you replace Dez Bryant's production? I don't think the answer is Allen Hurns. I don't think the answer is if you draft a wide receiver, even if you get Calvin Ridley in the draft. I think the answer is the way you replace Dez Bryant's production is through an improved Dak Prescott. I think we showed you the numbers all last year that Dak Prescott was one quarterback when it came to interception percentage or completion percentage, throwing to everyone but Dez, and a far worse quarterback throwing to Dez. I don't have numbers for it, but I just know from talking to people, whatever negative effect he had on, I don't want to say Dak's psyche, but almost Dak's confidence with whether it was griping or whether it was just a fire to win, but that type of, the attitude that didn't necessarily resonate well with the quarterback, that if removing Dez, because you can't make just an X's and O's football argument. Cowboys got better by cutting Dez Bryant. Their salary cap situation got better, but on the field, even a diminished Dez Bryant is better than no player at the position. They didn't trade him. The only way you're saying they're getting better is if they think the offense can be more, have greater variety, and if the quarterback is going to play with more confidence and play better without having the specter of Dez Bryant looming over him. So I think that is the answer to the question.
I think it's very, very important when you get in a situation like this. The question is the productivity. What does it take to replace his productivity? It doesn't take a lot. Dez was 28th in the NFL in yards last year. So actually, 27 other receivers had more yards. When you're talking about getting 800 yards in an NFL game, you're 800 in an NFL season, you're talking about 52 yards a game. Now, I'm not going to say that at this age that I could do that, but I'd be willing to bet a lot of money Greg Jennings could get in the NFL game and get 52 yards. So you're talking about he hasn't played at a high level. They've paid him at the highest level you can pay someone. So let's not trip. His productivity, it can be replaced. I don't believe that wide receivers make quarterbacks bad. All right, so it's easy to sit around and be like, oh, because they cut Dez. Oh, man, Dez's effect on Dak. Man, Dak wasn't that good. All right? So a great quarterback affects a wide receiver and can make him better. But a wide receiver who's pretty good, he don't make a quarterback go from good to bad. All right? So let's not blame all this on Dez. Now, a wide receiver, Greg and I can tell you, we can have an effect on the psyche. We can have an effect on what they're going to do with the football. We can have an effect on that quarterback and what he's looking at on a play-to-play basis. But Dez Bryant's productivity, it can be replaced, and it will be replaced in Dallas.
And the Cowboys obviously know that. They didn't offer him a pay cut to stay. They said, we're good. Whether it's Allen Hurns or someone else, we're going to be just fine with whatever else we have available to us. It's just not going to be you.
Yeah, and I think, again, to CeCe's point, when you talk about a guy and his impact on a quarterback at the receiver position, the impact is when you are demanding and demonstrative about getting the ball, that plays on the quarterback psyche. That's what he's talking about. Okay. So in that regard, I think it now frees up a Dak Prescott to go out there and just play. And I have options. I have other guys that I know I can get the ball to. That's not going to be when I walk to the sideline in my ear, or I'm not walking to the sideline thinking, man, I didn't even look at this. So I know I'm going to hear something, regardless if it's this game, but leading up to the next game and prolonging into the week. And that mentally weighs on a quarterback, especially a young quarterback. Yeah. So I think that was what the Dallas Cowboys was really looking at.
One thing Greg and I think what's really important right now is that offense needs one voice. Now, us wide receivers, man, we talk a lot. Some of us more than others. But we can be a burden to an offense. We can be a burden to a young quarterback. But at this time, what Dallas has with that offensive line, with Jason Witten as the senior guy on that offense, with Ezekiel Elliott coming back after no offseason contract, all the conversation this offseason about Dak, about Dez.
Yeah.
Zeke's going to have a monster year. The way that offense is focused, they need one voice, and it needs to be Dak. So for me, that's where they really came up. It's not the salary cap money. It's not. It's Dak's voice now can be the dominant voice for that offense. That's what's really important for Dallas right now.
All right. Greg, stick around. Coming up, should the Patriots trade up to find Tom Brady's replacement? I can't believe we're even asking such things. That's next on First Things First. Speaking of Tom Brady, the Patriots might be looking for his replacement in the draft. According to a report, the Patriots have expressed interest in drafting Josh Rosen.
Yeah.
This amid reports that Tom Brady hasn't committed to playing in 2018 and that other reports that the quarterback wants to rework his contract. Greg, should the Patriots go all in to build around Tom Brady, or should they focus on his eventual replacement? Which direction do you think this franchise should be going in?
This is an interesting question. They already are all in on Tom Brady. They are all in on, when you're on a roster and you are the guy, we're all in on you. Now, do they need to add some pieces because they have gotten rid of some pieces? Yes, but are they all in on Tom Brady? Yes, they're all in on Tom Brady, but they understand the business. I have to prepare for my future. Mm-hmm. And when I'll compare it to a situation in Green Bay. Brett Favre kind of did this to the Green Bay Packers, where every offseason began to now become, and I'm not saying this is what Tom Brady is doing, but now is he going to come back? Is he not going to come back? The older you get, the more committed a team has, the more committed you have to be to the team versus the team being committed to you. Meaning, I need to know, are you in or are you out? Because we're in on you. We just need to know if you're in on us. And so with this, with Tom Brady getting older, him not being there, that's no issue. But my concern is if this continues to happen every year now, off season, now all of a sudden we want to know, is Tom going to come? Is he all in this year? Is he playing? They can't play that game. So they have to go all in on a quarterback. They have to.
So quick follow-up. If you are going after a quarterback, you're still all in on Tom Brady?
Yeah, you're all in. Your quarterback's not going to start. He's not going to start. He's going to sit behind Tom Brady. He's going to learn for a year or two whenever Tom decides to hang it up. But I have to prepare now. They lost Jimmy Garoppolo, who was their future backup plan to Tom Brady. He was right there in the wake, going to take over, smooth transition.
Right.
That didn't happen. Now they're scrambling, and they have to find a guy who can at least be an understudy for whatever time they possibly can have behind Tom Brady.
The Patriots, they have on their board in their draft room right now, they have offseason needs. Lost Nate Solder. We need a left tackle, either through free agency or the draft. One of those needs is they need a backup quarterback. They also potentially, in that, they need a quarterback of the future. So in trying to develop this year's team, which they're going to try to win the Super Bowl, they're also going to try to develop a team for 2019 and 2020 because they know they're still going to be competitive. So they will handle both of them within each other. If you look at the two last off seasons, New England has gone all in.
Yeah.
Man, they made draft. Man, they was trading people. They got a receiver in Brandon Cooks. They traded for another defensive lineman. They thought would pan out. Like, they have been all in on Tom Brady. But just because you decide to draft a quarterback, that don't mean they're not all in on Tom Brady.
I agree. Just if they use one of those second-round picks on Mason Rudolph, or we're gonna have Joel Klatt on later in the show. He likes the quarterback out of Richmond. Like if they use if they don't trade up and they use a second-round pick on one of those guys, then you're still all in on Tom Brady. The Josh Rosen discussion, unless people think Rosen's going to have an Aaron Rodgers-esque fall in the draft, the Josh Rosen discussion is about, would you package 23 and 31 and maybe something else to move into the top 10 to go get this quarterback? And that, if I'm Tom Brady, is not what I want to see this team do. I do not want to see this team, when I'm 41 years old, use picks that could net me 2 or 3 contributors this year.
At 41, don't you think Tom knows that this year's
absolutely.
draft? Like
it's time.
That this year's hold on. That this year's draft what? I just wanted you to finish your
this
thought.
year's draft, like his replacement is coming out this year's draft?
Well, the thing is,
Greg and I have been there. We know it's coming.
It's coming.
98, they drafted Randy Moss. How long do you think I had there in New England? There in Minnesota?
Well, you ended up having, what, 5 more years?
Because I was a great player.
Right.
And because of my prime had been extended. That's the only reason. That's the only thing that held him on.
Right,
and with acquiring Randy Moss, you never really looked at the rearview mirror saying, oh, this guy is just going to flat out. No, I'm going to do I'm going to do me, but knowing this is the future.
But there's also, with the wide receiver position, obviously 2 guys get to play at once. And you know how highly I regard your playing career. But I mean, Tom Brady also, a great player. Like a guy who obviously has talked about...
If all the rumors about Tom Brady and him being paranoid of Jimmy Garoppolo...
Right.
No, why don't...
But that's it.
Of course,
making the same point.
That lets you know he was conscious of it.
Of course, but that's which is why...
If he was conscious of it 2 years ago...
Even more conscious of it now, which is why I think it's one thing if they do what they did with Jimmy. Spend a second-round pick on a quarterback. Need a backup quarterback. Need potentially a quarterback in the future. If the Patriots package picks to move into the top 10 to draft a quarterback, that is sending a strong message to a guy who has said, I want to play Tom 45.
Look, yesterday, man, we talked about Aaron Rodgers, what the organizations do. Now we're talking about Tom Brady. Like, things just don't work like this, Nick. All right? They have to go. When Tom made that documentary, Tom vs. Time, he didn't think the people in business with him are watching that. They would be idiotic not to. And if they think Josh Rosen, they have him rated that high, and if they can get him for those 2 number ones ain't gonna do them that much good. They need to get the quarterback of the future and get it right now.
What kind of blows me away about this is it happens every single year. All 32 teams are doing the same thing the New England Patriots are getting ready to do. They're looking for their future quarterback. I don't care who the Green Bay Packers are a prime example of having not really taken advantage of grabbing a quarterback that they feel can be the successor to Aaron Rodgers. The New England Patriots had done that. In losing Garoppolo, now they have to do that again, and they're more pressed to do it now because of the age.
That's why you can't wait on the second round.
No, you cannot.
Because your quarterback's going to be 41.
That's why the question is, are you all in or are you looking towards the future? Because if you're all in, maybe you don't worry about that because you know he's going to be there. You have a guy who could at least stand in the pocket, and you go get a guy that can help you this year. That's all in.
My point is they are already all in on Brady. He's going to be their guy. He is their guy.
But all in means trying to win again this year. Get a guy that could actually play this year.
They have other responsibilities. No. You guys are trying to jam too much. There's other responsibilities besides Tom Brady. And that is we need a quarterback of the future. And because of what happened with Garoppolo, they are in crisis now. They must get a franchise quarterback in this year's draft. There's not a lot of franchise quarterbacks in the second round.
I totally agree. And I have not sat here and said, you guys know how much I like this particular quarterback, Josh Rosen. I have not sat here and said, I wouldn't do that if I were New England. If I were New England and I could get Josh Rosen and we could do a Favre to Rodgers, Montana to Young, Manning to Luck type of handoff, that is the golden scenario. I'm not saying it's the wrong move. I am simply saying if I were Tom Brady and I'm making $14 million a year and I'm considering, even if it's just slightly, retirement already, you go out and trade those picks for Josh Rosen, that pushes me a hell of a lot closer to the retirement bucket than the I want to keep playing for another 3 or 4 years bucket, because it tells me the team is already considering me like closer to the retirement.
Well, they have to
Nick,
know
what
that.
else they got? Nick, you had him before the season. No guy in NFL history. No guy we have never seen at 39. Hold on. No, hold on. Hold on.
Right.
That's all you did, Nick.
I agreed, which is why if I were running the Patriots, this might be the move I would make. I'm simply saying if I'm Brady, and I just did a documentary saying I want to play till I'm 45. And we almost won the Super Bowl last year. Maybe we would have if we had another defensive back, another player. And you're going to package a bunch of picks to go get a guy that while I'm here won't see the field? Like, of course.
Okay, do you believe Tom Brady's going to play this year?
I do believe he's going to play.
All right, do you believe he's going to play next year?
In 2019?
That's the next year.
Okay, no, I just want to make sure I understood the question. I think what they do in this draft could affect that.
Your hesitation right there lets you know you got to get a franchise quarterback. When you don't have an answer, you got to get yourself a quarterback.
Cece, but we don't disagree on that. My point is this.
This is your problem.
Mm-hmm.
Stop being Tom Brady. Tom Brady knows they're going to get a replacement for him. So if you were thinking like Tom Brady wouldn't be surprised at all if they packaged those two and went up and if they thought there was a guy they were in love with. Tom Brady would not be shocked at all if they did that. So if you're thinking like Tom Brady, you need to think that way, like a football player.
And just to add, really, Tom Brady has always used something to fuel him every single year. What would be different now? Nothing. You go get a first-round guy, you package some deals together, and you go get a first-round guy, you sit him in the room, and you expect me to teach him and tutor him and to replace me.
Every move that you're doing is not based on trying to win this year's Super Bowl. You can't be just stuck on this year. Football is not going to end after this year. When Tom Brady retires, football is not going to end. You have to plan for the future so you can be totally in bed with Tom Brady and also thinking about the future. You can't run an NFL franchise. You can't be one of the most successful franchises in sports history, the Krafts and Belichick, if you are not thinking that way.
All right, we got to leave it right there. Greg, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Appreciate it. Up next, get back to LeBron James. Will he ever lose another playoff game for the rest of his life? That's next on First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf, and thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Make sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, and coworkers about the podcast, which, by the way, is available on iTunes and all your favorite podcast apps. You can catch a fresh new episode every Monday through Friday on FS1, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern, 3:30 a.m. Pacific. So long, everyone.